Chapter 419. Ji Xian. Zhou Xuanji walked out of the palace with the divine cliff core token in his hand as he thought about his new name. Outside the hall, a burly man was waiting. He was wearing cotton clothes, and his muscles bulged out his clothes. His face was ferocious, and facing Zhou Xuanji, he immediately gave a simple and honest smile. He cupped his fists and said, "My name is Fei Hai, and I am a disciple of the divine cliff. From today onwards, I will be your servant. If you need anything, just leave it to me. The divine cliff has already arranged a residence for you. I will take you there now." He quietly sized up Zhou Xuanji. This was the first time he had seen someone who was already a core disciple upon entering the sect. News about Zhou Xuanji had already spread in the divine cliff. Fei Hai was quite happy to be chosen as Zhou Xuanji's servant. To him, this was a great opportunity. Zhou Xuanji nodded and left quickly under Fei Hai's lead. The two of them stepped into the air. Along the way, Fei Hai did not speak much and led the way obediently. After the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, the two arrived in front of a mansion. This residence was located on a small mountain. An immortal energy pervaded the air. There were 3 courtyards inside, and many spirit flowers and spirit herbs were planted there. In the courtyard, there were 2 old servants and 3 maidservants cleaning. Seeing Zhou Xuanji and Jiang Chen arrive, they immediately knelt down and paid their respects. "Greetings, Master." Zhou Xuanji scanned with his divine sense and found that the disciples living in the nearby hills were all very powerful. The weakest was a 3rd revolution golden immortal. It seemed like this was the residence of the divine cliff's geniuses. Fei Hai cupped his fists and said respectfully, "Senior, please stay here for now. I have to go back and pack my things. I will stay in one of the guest rooms here so that you can summon me at any time. At the same time, I will help you collect your stipend and disciple robes. Please give me the divine cliff core token." Zhou Xuanji threw the divine cliff core token to him and entered the residence with Baisuan. Fei Hai left quickly. He was very excited and did not want to waste any more time, lest he displease Zhou Xuanji. "The spiritual qi here is abundant." Baisuan cried out in shock, which made Zhou Xuanji roll his eyes at her. Could it be that the spiritual qi of her 9 heavens divine snake clan is inferior to this place? Soon, he found a nice courtyard to stay in. There were many seeds of natural treasures in the supreme storage, including the 5-colored immortal fruit. However, this place was too conspicuous, and he was afraid of being stolen, so he didn't plant them for the time being. On that day, Fei Hai returned. He brought back a set of core disciple uniforms and 500 pure spirit pills for Zhou Xuanji. The Great Thousand World used mortal pills as currency. Pure spirit pills were the upgraded version of mortal pills. 1 pure spirit pill was equivalent to 1,000 mortal pills. Core disciples could receive 500 pure spirit pills every month, which could be used for cultivation or as money. Zhou Xuanji could also go to the Enchanted Artifact Pavilion to get a suitable enchanted artifact. In addition, core disciples could enter the Cultivation Technique Pavilion once a month for free. However, this opportunity could not be accumulated. If they did not go this month, they could only enter the Cultivation Technique Pavilion once next month, and they could only stay for 3 days at a time. In the blink of an eye, half a month passed. Zhou Xuanji did not leave his house and tried to comprehend the cultivation of a 5th revolution golden immortal. After he got used to it, he left with Fei Hai. He left by Suwon in the mansion because he wanted to go to the technique chamber. It was not suitable for him to bring her along. On the way, Fei Hai introduced the situation of the divine cliff to him. There were over 1 million disciples in the divine cliff, and they were divided into outer disciples, inner disciples, elite disciples, core disciples, and direct disciples. After becoming an elite disciple, they could leave the divine cliff and work in various places. They could even supervise a mortal realm. However, the minimum requirement to become an elite disciple was 5th revolution golden immortal. To most disciples, it was beyond their reach, including Fei Hai. During this period, Fei Hai mentioned the major events that happened recently. Core disciple Long Kun went out to train, and was hunted down by the Blood Devil Palace. He almost died, and this caused a huge commotion in the Divine Cliff. The Blood Devil Palace was an overlord-level faction that was not inferior to the Divine Cliff. The daughter of the Palace Lord, Xiao Hongjun, disappeared mysteriously, which caused the Blood Devil Palace to become more irritable and create trouble everywhere. Zhou Xuanji looked calm, but he had some doubts in his heart. It turned out that Xiao Hongjun had descended to the mortal realm secretly. She deserved it. Now that she was trapped in the northern wilderness region, there was no help for her. Zhou Xuanji was very rich and did not need to go out on missions to increase his wealth. Wealth was very important because it could be used to exchange for more cultivation resources. Soon, they came to the Energy Technique Pavilion. Zhou Xuanji asked Fei Hai to find out the whereabouts of the 18 divine swords. Fei Hai had a strange expression, but he still agreed. After entering the pavilion, Zhou Xuanji flashed his Divine Cliff Core token, and the disciples on duty let him in. His target was the sword techniques and some sealing spells. The Energy Technique Pavilion was huge. It was decorated in an antique manner, and many disciples stood before the bookshelves to read. Zhou Xuanji found a random bookshelf and began reading. On the other side, in the Cliff Lord Palace, Han Shuzi sat on the main seat. Dozens of people stood in the palace, and each of them had a powerful aura. He looked around and asked, Ji Xian's incident was not exposed, right? Emissary Li Qing replied, no. Those who know about this have been cursed. If they leak it, they will be punished by heaven and earth. Han Shuzi nodded. A handsome man with an elegant temperament stepped forward. He wore a white robe and was very eye-catching in the crowd. His name was Yang Yuqian, the eldest disciple of Han Shuzi. He was a true god and extremely powerful. Revered teacher, I found out that Divine Lord Ji is also searching for the northern wilderness region secretly. His target is most likely Ji Xian. Should we be careful? Divine Lord Ji's foresight is miraculous and can always predict the future. We must be careful, Yang Yutian said with a solemn expression as he cupped his fist. As for Han Shuzi taking in Zhou Xuanji, he neither objected nor agreed to it, because the pros and cons were too complicated. Han Shuzi squinted his eyes and said, although Divine Lord Ji is powerful, he acts strangely and never attacks openly. Let's pretend that we don't know about this and stop investigating him, lest we alert the enemy. Yang Yuqian nodded. Investigating Divine Lord Ji was extremely stressful, and he wanted to give up a long time ago. He thought of something else and said, Shi Shenzong is about to become a great emperor. Although the Hegemon Sword Sect is a new force that rose 10,000 years ago, Shi Shenzong is extremely talented and is the revered teacher of the Hegemon Sword Emperor. We must stop him. The Divine Cliff and the Hegemon Sword Emperor had always been on bad terms. Back then, Han Shuzi tried to recruit the Hegemon Sword Emperor but was rejected rudely. Han Shuzi did not take it out on him, but after that, the Hegemon Sword Emperor would teach the Divine Cliff disciples a lesson. Although he did not kill them, it was a slap to the Divine Cliff's face. An old man said with a frown, the Cliff Lord can't go personally. Who should we send? The Hegemon Sword Emperor is not weak. Not only Han Shuzi, but Yang Yutian was also not suitable. If they were to go, they would be bullying the weak. Han Shuzi smiled and said, let Ji Xian go and make a name for himself before the Ascender examination. When the time comes, it will be harder for him to be exposed. Moreover, Ji Xian defeated Shi Shenzong in the northern wilderness region. Even the Hegemon Sword Emperor was defeated by him. Mentioning this, everyone's expression changed. Every time they thought of Zhou Xuanji's accomplishments, they felt mixed emotions. If they were at Zhou Xuanji's cultivation level, they would not have been able to defeat the Heavenly Law Army. Calm. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 420. 3 days later, Zhou Xuanji walked out of the Energy Technique Pavilion. Fei Hai was already waiting for him at the door. Senior, how was it? Fei Hai asked with a silly smile. His eyes were filled with envy. He wanted to enter the Energy Technique Pavilion too, but it required too many pure spirit pills. Almost all of his pure spirit pills were spent on cultivation. For disciples like them, who were not very talented, pure spirit pills were a necessity for cultivation. Zhou Xuanji nodded lightly and said, "Not bad." He memorized all the sword techniques in the Energy Technique Pavilion. In the Great Thousand World, energy techniques, spells, and divine abilities were not differentiated by grades. But after a glance, he felt that these sword techniques were more powerful than most sword techniques in the Northern Wilderness region. The Divine Cliff lived up to its name indeed. The Divine Cliff was not a sword sect, so there were not many sword techniques, but there were still quite a few. He memorized about 400 sword techniques. He planned to record these sword techniques after he returned and put them in Skyfall's Xuanji Sword Pavilion. This was somewhat shameless. He could only apologize to the Divine Cliff and help them as much as he could in the future. The two returned to the residence. There was a guest in the courtyard. It was Emissary Li Qing. He was one of the 36 emissaries of the Divine Cliff. He had a high status and powerful cultivation, so the servants naturally invited him into the residence. Seeing Zhou Xuanji, he got up with a smile and said, "Brother Zhou, how have you been? The Divine Cliff has a mission for you to do." He went straight to the point and did not beat around the bush. "What mission?" Zhou Xuanji asked. He was shocked in his heart. He thought that the Divine Cliff would protect him tightly and not allow him to go out before he became powerful enough. He did not expect a mission so soon. Emissary Li Qing told him about the mission. It was about Shi Shenzong becoming a great emperor, which made Zhou Xuanji laugh. He did not expect this guy to become a great emperor. Zhou Xuanji said directly, "Does Shi Shenzong have enmity with the Divine Cliff? To be honest, I admire him." He comprehended his sword soul from Shi Shenzong. In Shi Shenzong, he saw the true spirit of a sword saint. Emissary Li Qing was a little stunned. He has no enmity with the Divine Cliff, but the hegemon Sword Emperor does. Zhou Xuanji understood and said, "Then I will do my best." Each of them had their own masters, so there was nothing much to say. Actually, it's fine to let him become a great emperor. However, if you can deal a heavy blow to the hegemon sword sect spirit, you will have completed your mission, Emissary Li Qing said with a meaningful smile. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow and accepted the mission. He then asked when they would depart. Emissary Li Qing replied, "Tomorrow, you will go with another core disciple, Lan Shangying. She will lead the way." Zhou Xuanji nodded and asked, "What if I accidentally expose my identity?" If he was in a life-or-death situation, he might have to use all his trump cards. Even if he didn't, he might be recognized. Emissary Li Qing smiled and said, "You have already become a great emperor and have nothing to do with the mortal realm. If anyone doesn't believe that you are Ji Xian, they can come to the Divine Cliff to demand an explanation." Domineering. Zhou Xuanji was almost convinced. Zhou Xuanji had already become a great emperor and was not in the Northern Wilderness region. He was no longer the biggest obstacle to the plan to exterminate the Northern Wilderness humans, at least not on the surface. Emissary Li Qing exchanged a few more pleasantries and left. Fei Hai asked curiously, "Senior, is your identity very special?" Zhou Xuanji glanced at him and said with a smile that did not seem like a smile, "That's a secret. If you know, you will die." Fei Hai was so frightened that his body trembled, and he hurriedly covered his mouth. Time passed quickly for the two of them. Lan Shangying came to find Zhou Xuanji when the sun had just risen. Bai Suwen insisted on following him, and he had no choice but to put her in his bosom. After walking out of the residence, he saw Lan Shangying. This woman was wearing a blue dress and had a slim figure. Her facial features were exquisite, but her expression was very cold. She gave off the aura of a fairy, holy and inviolable. Before, Zhou Xuanji had seen her when he had visited Han Shuzi. Lan Shangying nodded slightly and said, "Let's go." After saying this, she gripped her scabbard and flew away on her sword. Zhou Xuanji followed closely behind her. The two of them flew through the clouds and did not speak. She did not speak, and Zhou Xuanji did not bother to talk to her. However, Bai Suwen was very excited. She stuck out her snake head and continuously chattered. The first time Zhou Xuanji heard her voice, he had thought that she was an introverted female demon. After getting to know her, he realized that it was all a lie. The two of them flew faster and faster. Lan Xiangying was testing Zhou Xuanji and found that no matter how fast she flew, Zhou Xuanji could keep up. Fifth Revolution Golden Immortal. Did he really just ascend? She was shocked in her heart and became even more curious about Zhou Xuanji. After passing through the dense fog, Zhou Xuanji could finally see the outline of the land. Below him, the mountains rose and fell, and birds flew in circles. Looking up, he could see many towns and villages. The Great Thousand World was similar to the Northern Wilderness region, just that it was much larger and had denser spiritual qi. In a wasteland, Shi Shenzong sat on a giant rock, internalizing qi with his legs crossed. 1,000 meters away, there were sword cultivators standing guard in all directions. They looked around warily. The Hegemon Sword Emperor was there too. He had a muscular figure and sat on a golden throne. His hands were on the hilt of his sword, and the blade was stabbed into the rock beneath him. He wore a brown fur robe with black armor underneath. His black hair danced in the wind, and he gave off a wild aura. He did not look like a sword emperor, but a shocking demon king. He looked at Shi Shenzong expectantly. He had never doubted Shi Shenzong's talent. After all, Shi Shenzong was the person he respected the most. Although they had conflicts before, their relationship had never deteriorated. A sword cultivator appeared beside him and half knelt. Sect Lord, according to reliable news, Nangong Lai is coming with 100 golden immortals, he said with a deep voice. The Hegemon Sword Emperor heard him, and his eyes sparkled. As expected, the news was leaked, he mumbled. He could not help but feel a headache. He was powerful, but he could not rule the Center God province unhindered. After all, he had only ascended for 10,000 years, and the Hegemon Sword sect he established was not powerful enough. As such, he had to help Shi Shenzong become a great emperor. Scout again, the Hegemon Sword Emperor said, and the sword cultivator immediately left. He looked at Shi Shenzong again. As long as Shi Shenzong became a great emperor, any sacrifice would be worth it. He suddenly thought of Zhou Xuanji. Compared to that brat's talent, Shi Shenzong would seem mediocre. It could even be said that Zhou Xuanji was the most talented person in the history of the Northern Wilderness region. It was a pity that he insisted on protecting the Northern Wilderness region. If he did not think things through, he would be finished sooner or later. As for Zhou Xuanji, he greatly admired him. Back in the inheritance world, Zhou Xuanji's words had allowed him to break through in his way of the sword and greatly increase his strength. He had wanted to recruit Zhou Xuanji. It was a pity that this fellow was too monstrous. Before he had ascended, everyone in the Center God province had heard of his name. Every time he thought of this, the Hegemon Sword Emperor would feel very angry. He felt a kind of annoyance that someone could not live up to his expectations. Of course, it was not that this person could not live up to his expectations, but that he was too tough. Boom! At that moment, an explosion sounded out, breaking the Hegemon Sword Emperor's thoughts and causing him to look. Shi Shenzong exploded out with magic energy, and traces of wind wrapped around his body, causing the ground to tremble. Thunderclouds gathered. He was preparing to become a great emperor. Before, Shi Shenzong had already defeated 10 great emperor candidates, and everything was going smoothly. Before becoming a great emperor, he wanted to comprehend his way of the sword. It seemed that he had gained an even higher level of comprehension. TXT, I have countless legendary swords. Chapter 4:21. When Shi Shenzong began to become a great emperor, Zhou Xuanji and Lan Xiangying were still moving forward. Lan Xiangying had extraordinary talent, but she had never become a great emperor before. To become a great emperor, not only talent was needed, but fate was also needed. Lan Xiangying had lived in the Divine Cliff since she was young. She would go out to train occasionally, but she had never obtained Heavenly Law fate. So, she was very interested in becoming a great emperor, especially a third-class great emperor like Zhou Xuanji. Third-class great emperor was the identity given to Zhou Xuanji by the divine cliff. After all, a first-class great emperor was too eye-catching and would easily attract the attention of the center god province. If Shi Shinzong can become a great emperor, then he will not need to undergo the tribulation. When we arrive, he might have already become a great emperor, Zhou Xuanji reminded. Zhou Xuanji reminded. This woman was simply too cold. They had been out for a few days, but she had not spoken a single word. But she kept sizing him up secretly, and he could not take it anymore. Lan Shangyin didn't even turn her head as she said, "Then kill him." Such arrogance. Zhou Xuanji rolled his eyes and asked, "Are you a match for the hegemon sword emperor?" Lan Shangyin replied, "I have the power to fight." She was a core disciple of the divine cliff and was naturally powerful. Zhou Xuanji fell silent. He had accidentally given her a chance to act cool, and he was a little unhappy. The two continued forward quickly. They were getting closer to the place where Shi Shinzong was becoming a great emperor, and they could already sense the heavenly might. Lan Shangying's eyes squinted as she suddenly increased her speed, flying over. Zhou Xuanji followed closely behind. Such a powerful aura. It must be the hegemon sword emperor. Who is he fighting with? Zhou Xuanji thought to himself curiously. He had yet to fight with his full power after reaching 5th Revolution Golden Immortal. He was looking forward to seeing how powerful he was. The hegemon sword emperor should have already surpassed Golden Immortal. The hegemon sword emperor must have participated in the Ascender examination that Han Shuzi mentioned. With his fame, how could he not be the final victor? At the same time, in the barren land, Shi Shinzong stood in the air and enjoyed the heavenly grace. His cultivation grew tremendously. 2 powerful beams of light clashed violently around the heavenly grace pillar. It was the hegemon sword emperor and Nangong Lai. More precisely, Nangong Lai wanted to stop Shi Shinzong from becoming a great emperor, but the hegemon sword emperor had been stopping him. Nangong Lai wore a blue robe with a phoenix embroidered with golden threads. He held a circular fan in his hands and fought in ten with the hegemon. Silhouettes of cultivators could be seen fighting in every direction. Explosions rang out one after another, shattering the land within a radius of 500 kilometers. The hegemon sword emperor wielded the gigantic sword in his hand and danced about wildly. Sword chi wreaked havoc, and even the thunderclouds were scattered. However, no matter how powerful he was, Nangong Lai could easily receive his attacks. Hegemon sword emperor, you are still too young. I advise you to give up. Nangong Lai coldly mocked, his gaze never leaving Shi Shinzong. Shi Shinzong must die. With his talent, he would definitely become a second-grade great sovereign. The hegemon sword emperor did not reply. He continuously executed all sorts of sword arts, but he still did not allow Nangong Lai to get close to the heavenly grace light pillar. Even his magic power could not be used. Shi Shinzong's cultivation had already reached the 1st Revolution Golden Immortal Realm. Previously, he had already ascended, and his cultivation had reached the 8th Tribulation Scattered Immortal Realm. Furthermore, he had received the hegemon sword emperor's nurturing, so he had already reached the peak of the 9th Tribulation Scattered Immortal Realm before becoming a martial emperor. After breaking through to the 1st Revolution Golden Immortal Realm, he slowly opened his eyes, and a sword soul condensed behind him. So powerful! Is this a heavenly Revolution Golden Immortal? He stared at his hands and muttered to himself, ignoring the fighting around him. Zhou Xuanji, I still surpassed you. He laughed in high spirits, insufferably arrogant. When he had found out that Zhou Xuanji had become a first-class great emperor, he had not come back to his senses for a few days. Now that Zhou Xuanji was trapped in the northern wilderness region and could not break through to Heavenly Revolution Golden Immortal, he had done it first. He suddenly wanted to fight Zhou Xuanji again. It was a pity that he had lost contact with the northern wilderness region. Xiao! An air-piercing sound was heard as Lan Shangyin charged over with her sword. She was extremely fast. The hegemon sword emperor widened his eyes and bellowed furiously, "You're courting death." Another huge sword appeared in his left hand, and he slashed at Lan Shangying. The sword Qi turned into mountains and rivers, and it was majestic and unstoppable. Lan Shangying's expression changed slightly. She shook her right hand, and sword flowers shot out in all directions. Sword Qi turned into a storm and crashed into the Sword Qi mountain river. Bang! The ground shook, and Shi Shinzong was almost sent flying. He gritted his teeth and stared at Lan Shangying. This woman's cultivation level is so high. Lan Shangying didn't attack him. Instead, she charged towards the hegemon Sword Emperor. Nangong Lai, let's fight him together, Lan Shangying said coldly. Hearing this, Nangong Lai laughed heartily. The core disciples of the Divine Cliff are indeed ruthless. He sighed in admiration, and his gaze turned to the hegemon Sword Emperor. His gaze became ruthless. Once Lan Shangying joined in, the hegemon Sword Emperor became passive. This is going to be troublesome. The hegemon Sword Emperor groaned inwardly. If the Divine Cliff sent another core disciple, then it would really be over. He subconsciously looked in the direction that Lan Shangying had come from, and his expression changed drastically. A black-robed swordsman walked over with a sword in hand. He wore a bamboo hat and an iron mask. It was Zhou Xuanji. He held the Ghost Emperor Extreme Abyss and walked towards Shi Shinzong step by step. Shi Shinzong also noticed him and couldn't help but feel shocked. Such a powerful sword Qi. Shi Shinzong narrowed his eyes, and seeing Zhou Xuanji's eyes, his heart trembled. Could it be him? Impossible. As if struck by lightning, he froze on the spot. Shouldn't Zhou Xuanji be in the northern wilderness region? Be careful. This kid is a 5th Revolution Golden Immortal. The hegemon Sword Emperor fought 1 against 2, but he didn't forget to remind Shi Shinzong. 5th Revolution Golden Immortal. Shi Shinzong deeply breathed in. This person most likely wasn't Zhou Xuanji. No matter how talented Zhou Xuanji was, it was impossible for him to have 5th Revolution Golden Immortal cultivation right now. Moreover, it was the first time he had seen the sword in Zhou Xuanji's hand. Zhou Xuanji did not have such a sword. Zhou Xuanji walked at a moderate pace, as if he was not in a hurry to act. Shi Shinzong immediately understood. His opponent was waiting for him to become a great emperor. This was not out of goodwill. Instead, it was an extreme battle intent. Shi Shinzong's gaze became sharp, and he took out his 2 swords. After the heavenly grace disappeared, he would rush at Zhou Xuanji. Even though there was a difference of 4 revolutions in cultivation, he was going to fight. He was the Sword Saint, and in terms of the way of the sword, he would not lose to others. Moreover, they were both golden immortals, and with his talent, he could make up for the difference in cultivation levels. Zhou Xuanji closely looked at Shi Shinzong and inwardly praised. You're already a 1st Revolution Golden Immortal. Not bad. Not too long ago, Shi Shinzong's cultivation had been higher than his. He swept out his divine sense towards the hegemon Sword Emperor, Nangong Lai, and Lan Shangying. The battle between the 3 of them was incredibly grand, and it could be described as apocalyptic. They definitely surpassed 10th Revolution Golden Immortals. Void Extreme Immortal. He learned from the Divine Cliff's Technique Pavilion that the Void Extreme Immortal was above the 10th Revolution Golden Immortal, and above that was the True God. Void Extreme Immortals could already do as they pleased in the Center God province. Of course, they were still far from being comparable to True Gods. Looks like if I want to challenge the hegemon Sword Emperor, I'll have to climb even higher. Zhou Xuanji thought. Although he had received the hegemon Sword Emperor's inheritance, it did not stop him from challenging the hegemon Sword Emperor. Since he wanted to be the only Sword Emperor, the other Sword Emperors had to be defeated by his sword. Chapter 422. Bai Suwen popped her head out from Zhou Xuanji's bosom and looked at the battle in the sky. Wow, so strong. Are we really going there? Little Ji Xian, are you as strong as them? Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji felt a headache. He ignored it and continued to look at Shi Shinzong. This fellow was about to succeed in becoming a great emperor. He had already become a fifth-grade great sovereign. From the looks of it, he should be a second-grade great martial emperor. After all, he was once the most outstanding genius in the way of the sword in the history of the northern wilderness region. Even the hegemon sword emperor was inferior to him. Seeing Zhou Xuanji come closer and closer to Shi Shenzong, the hegemon sword emperor felt incredibly worried. However, he could only barely hold on against two void extreme immortals, and he was unable to help Shi Shenzong. In the distance, the hegemon sword sect's sword cultivators were still fighting bitterly. 6 of them had already died. The 100 heavenly revolution golden immortals that Nangong Lai brought were clearly stronger. Who is that guy? Why does it give me a familiar feeling? The hegemon sword emperor thought to himself as he fought. Zhou Xuanji did not immediately act, evidently not because he feared him, but because he wanted to wait until Shi Shenzong became a great emperor before acting. The reason was very simple, because his footsteps did not stop. Zhou Xuanji looked down at his ghost emperor extreme abyss and mumbled, "Today, you will reveal your brilliance." Ghost emperor extreme abyss. He spoke in a deliberately hoarse voice. Shi Shenzong, who was within the pillar of divine grace, frowned. The name Ghost Emperor Extreme Abyss did not sound like a good thing. Ghost Sword. Zhou Xuanji slowly walked forwards, waiting for Shi Shenzong to finish becoming a great emperor. Ding! The legendary sword's level has been successfully updated. From low to high, they are ordinary stone, iron, bronze, silver, gold, purple crystal, glorious gold, heavenly soul, intimidating spirit, celestial shaking, God-slaying, apocalyptic, ancient gazing, disaster-releasing, cosmos essence, overturning heaven, heavenly connection, 9 extremities in primordial chaos. The sword spirit's voice suddenly sounded out in Zhou Xuanji's mind, which stunned him. A new divine sword level. Ancient gazing, disaster-releasing, universe essence, overturning heavens, heaven span, 9 extremities, primordial chaos. A total of 7 major realms. His breathing quickened. As expected, the supreme legendary sword system did not disappoint him. Even if he came to the boundless world, he could still rely on the divine sword to rise. However, just the Armageddon sword required the cultivation of a 7th revolution golden immortal. So what realm did the ancient gazing sword require? Where is the disaster-releasing divine sword? Where was the divine sword of Qian Yuan? The more he thought about it, the more his head hurt. Of course, he was even more excited. 100 miles away, an old beggar sat on the peak of a 2,000 feet tall mountain. He held a roasted leg in his hand, and his hand was covered in grease. His body was thin and short, and his hair was as white as withered grass. His face was covered in freckles and dirt. While munching on the roasted leg, he clicked his tongue in wonder and said, 3 void extreme immortals are fighting here, and one of them is becoming a great emperor. It seems like he has the potential of a second-grade great emperor. How interesting. Behind him, a valiant man dressed in luxurious clothes walked over. This person had a handsome face and a strong physique. The purple robe he wore resembled a dragon's robe. He frowned slightly and looked at the old beggar impatiently. "Master, are we still on our way?" The purple-robed man asked in a deep voice. He was the most helpless when it came to his master. The old beggar looked at the battle in the distance and snorted. "Little four, don't think that you can be so arrogant just because you have the title of Crown Dragon Darksaber." Back then, Di Guanlong felt like his head was about to explode. Every time he urged the old beggar, the beggar would start boasting. Because they were master and disciple, he had to listen. Helplessly, he could only look into the distance. Second-grade great emperor? Humph! Di Guanlong snorted coldly in disdain. A while later, Shi Shenzong finally became a great emperor and reached second-grade great emperor. The light pillar of divine grace dissipated. He held both swords in his hands and turned to look at Zhou Xuanji. His eyes were burning with battle intent. "I'm the sword saint Shi Shenzong. Who are you? Tell me your name." Shi Shenzong cried out proudly. With both swords in his hands, he feared nothing in the world. Zhou Xuanji hastened his steps and dashed over. "I'm the Divine Cliff's core disciple, Ji Xian." After he spoke, Zhou Xuanji came up to Shi Shenzong with the 8-step sword lunge and slashed at him. So fast, Shi Shenzong's pupils contracted as he thought to himself in shock. He knew about the Divine Cliff's core disciples. All of them were elites among men. How could a 5th Revolution Golden Immortal become a core disciple? He did not have time to think and instinctively blocked with his swords. Clang! Zhou Xuanji sent Shi Shenzong flying back with a single slash. The horrifying power almost caused Shi Shenzong's swords to fly out of his hands. After flying out for 1,000 meters, he stabbed both swords into the ground and slid dozens of meters before he stopped. His eyes turned cold and fearless. Instead, he unleashed his aura and charged at Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji did not use his signature sword technique. Instead, he used a sword technique that he had just learned. Wind Breath Wave Sword. He quickly swung the Ghost Emperor Extreme Abyss, and ghostly howls could be heard. Clang! 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 The two of them fought intensely. Both of their swords were extremely fast, and after-images of their swords appeared one after another. Their movements were gorgeous and pleasing to the eye. A violent gale blew and isolated the battlefield. Zhou Xuanji used his absolute advantage in cultivation to suppress Shi Shenzong. Shi Shenzong could only barely deal with Zhou Xuanji's attacks and could not retaliate. Damn, Shi Shenzong gritted his teeth and wanted to use his sword soul. However, Zhou Xuanji's swords were extremely cunning and difficult to defend against. He could not find an opportunity to activate his sword soul. Zhou Xuanji suddenly laughed with a hoarse voice. "I've just ascended for less than a month. You are inferior to me." Shi Shenzong's pupils contracted. Just ascended? The cultivation level of those who ascended from the mortal world did not exceed that of a 5th Tribulation Scattered Immortal. How did he become a 5th Revolution Golden Immortal? Shi Shenzong's heart trembled. At that moment, Zhou Xuanji suddenly unleashed the Wind Breath Wave Sword Will. In the blink of an eye, Shi Shenzong's body was covered with wounds, and his swords flew out of his hands. Zhou Xuanji's attainments in the way of the sword surpassed his, and adding on his great emperor rank, cultivation, and legendary swords, how could Shi Shenzong not lose? Xiao! The tip of the sword landed on his throat, and Shi Shenzong's body froze. His face turned red, and he gritted his teeth. He felt so aggrieved that he was about to explode. He was defeated before he even used his ultimate skill. It was really vexing. Zhou Xuanji suddenly sent a telepathic message to him, causing him to open his eyes wide as if he had seen a ghost. "I'm Zhou Xuanji. Follow me and become my sword slave. I'll definitely help you surpass the 9 emperors of the Way of the Sword." Shi Shenzong was not humiliated by his words. He was still in shock and was unable to pull himself out of it. How could this be? He was Zhou Xuanji. Why was he here? And he was a 5th Revolution Golden Immortal? At that moment, Shi Shenzong suddenly felt an urge to explode with vulgarities, but the Sword Saint's self-restraint made it so that he could not say a single word. "Shameless brat, if you dare to kill him, I won't let you off for the rest of my life." The Hegemon Sword Emperor furiously roared, sounding like thunder. Zhou Xuanji ignored him and looked at Shi Shenzong with a burning gaze. Shi Shenzong's talent in the way of the sword was simply too shocking, and it was best to use him for himself. It was just like the Heavenly Palace's Xianyuan Shenhao, who was still being brainwashed at Skyfall. Shi Shenzong gritted his teeth and sent a telepathic message. "Are you humiliating me?" Zhou Xuanji calmly replied, "Among my sword slaves, there are 2 10,000-year princes, one descendant of the demonic emperor bloodline, one exquisite sword mind, and one overseas' #1 genius in the way of the sword. Their talent is not inferior to yours. So how is taking me as their master humiliating you? I have the talent of a first-class great emperor, and before I ascended, I killed a 1st Revolution Golden Immortal and destroyed all those who became great emperors. In the current world, apart from me, who has the qualifications to make you submit. Do you want to go through today's situation again? You'd rather follow your disciple and become a joke than follow me? The hegemon sword emperor cannot protect you, but I can. M. Chapter 423. Shi Shinzong fell silent. Zhou Xuanji's words caused him to feel shocked, and he also felt a stabbing pain in his heart. That was right. He was a sword saint, but after ascending, he had to rely on his disciple to protect him. Wasn't this a joke? He also wanted to be independent. However, he had offended the Xian Yuan clan of the Heavenly Palace, and the other forces were also drooling over his talent. If he did not have anyone to protect him, it would be very difficult for him to survive. In the Great Thousand World, there were countless capable people. Even if he hid deep in the mountains, there would still be people who could find him. Zhou Xuanji saw that it was difficult for him to accept and sent a telepathic message again. How about becoming a sword attendant instead of a sword slave? Shi Shinzong was speechless and couldn't help but reply. Is there a difference? Zhou Xuanji replied, to make you feel better. Shi Shinzong fell silent. The hegemon sword emperor, who was currently fighting, felt incredibly anxious. Zhou Xuanji's sword was already at Shi Shinzong's throat, and he could take Shi Shinzong's life at any moment. Nangonglai asked as he cast the spell. Why isn't the little friend of the divine cliff making a move? Could it be that the divine cliff was not here to help him? Was it just an act? Lan Xiangying didn't reply, but she frowned slightly. Zhou Xuanji had just arrived and did not know the rules, but she understood. After all, Shi Shinzong was a third-class great emperor. Seeing someone with greater talent, he would probably feel unbalanced and want to bully Shi Shinzong. The battle continued. Zhou Xuanji and Yi Zichen seemed to be in another world. They did not move and communicated telepathically. Shi Shinzong found it a bit difficult to endure Su Chen's words, and his heart started to soften. After a while, Shi Shinzong looked up at the hegemon sword emperor and faintly sighed as he sent a voice transmission. Forget it. I will follow you. I can be used by you, but I cannot be a sword slave. Zhou Xuanji smiled. I was afraid that you wouldn't be worried. He would first trick Shi Shinzong over, then slowly make him submit. And so, Zhou Xuanji sheathed his sword and left. Shi Shinzong followed closely behind. The hegemon sword emperor widened his eyes and hurriedly shouted, Shi Shinzong, where are you going? Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji was delighted. No wonder Shi Shinzong had been moved. That fellow didn't even call him master anymore. He was simply too disgraceful. Shi Shinzong turned around and said, apologies, from today onwards, I will follow him. His name is Ji Xian, and his talent in the way of the sword is greater than mine. The hegemon sword emperor nearly vomited blood. What the hell? He had not expected this turn of events at all. If you are in trouble in the future, I will definitely do my best to repay you for your decades of support, Shi Shinzong said calmly. After thinking about it, he and the hegemon sword emperor did not owe each other anything. Back in the northern wilderness region, if not for him, the hegemon sword emperor would have died long ago. Now, because of the difference in their realms, the hegemon sword emperor treated him as an equal, and he already had a nod in his heart. The hegemon sword emperor's face instantly darkened. Lan Xiangying and Nangonglai also looked at Zhou Xuanji in confusion. What did this brat say to change Shi Shinzong's attitude? They had some understanding of Shi Shinzong. He would rather die than submit. Back then, if it wasn't for the hegemon sword emperor saving him, he most likely would have died outside the heavenly palace. Zhou Xuanji brought Shi Shinzong and quickly left. Lan Xiangying also left the battlefield and turned into a ray of sword light as she chased after Zhou Xuanji. Nangonglai and the hegemon sword emperor stopped as well. The hegemon sword emperor's face was dark, and he did not say anything, nor did he chase after Zhou Xuanji and Shi Shinzong. His heart was filled with unprecedented grievance. He really wanted to explode, but he didn't know who to explode at. To Zhou Xuanji, Lan Xiangying would definitely help. Ask Shi Shinzong, then he would really be branded as a traitor. Nangong Lai smiled and said, Hegemon Sword Emperor, this is truly a cause for celebration. See you next time. He turned around and left quickly. The golden immortals he brought with him also retreated. The Hegemon Sword Emperor floated in the air and forcefully suppressed his anger. He was thinking. He racked his brains to think. Why had Shi Shinzong betrayed him? Was it because the Divine Cliff was too strong? Or was he bewitched by that disciple of the Divine Cliff? Dozens of sword shio flew over from all directions. Every one of them was covered in blood and looked very dispirited. In this battle, they had lost miserably and had even become a laughingstock. They hated Shi Shinzong to the core, but they didn't dare to say anything. The other side, Zhou Xuanji and Shi Shinzong flew at full speed, and Lan Xiangying quickly caught up to them. She flew over to Zhou Xuanji and asked, How did you convince him? Zhou Xuanji chuckled and said, And I are old friends. Lan Xiangying suddenly understood. Shi Shinzong came from the northern wilderness region. Didn't that mean that Zhou Xuanji was also from the northern wilderness region? The sword Dao, great emperor of the northern wilderness region. Her pupils shrank as if she had thought of something. Her body trembled slightly, but she didn't say anything. Zhou Xuanji, Ji Xian, waves of shock surged in her heart. Zhou Xuanji's name shook the Center God province, and he was known as the most powerful genius in the mortal realm. He was ranked 12th on the Great Emperor's Stele. In terms of talent, he was definitely the most talented cultivator in the past 100,000 years. No wonder Shi Shinzong became his disciple. Zhou Xuanji turned to look at Shi Shinzong and said, From today onwards, you will follow me to the Divine Cliff. You will stay in my residence, and we can exchange insights in the sword's way anytime. To intimidate Shi Shinzong, he condensed 9 sword souls straight away. Shi Shinzong was tongue-tied, and he looked as if he had seen a ghost. He could only condense 1 sword soul, and he had to accumulate power. Zhou Xuanji could condense 9 sword souls at will. How could he not be shocked? His eyes were burning with passion. He wanted to learn such a skill. Lan Xiangying did not speak, but she was also stunned by Zhou Xuanji. She knew about sword souls because she also cultivated sword techniques. Her impression of Zhou Xuanji changed completely, and she was filled with interest in him. A day passed. The Hegemon Sword Emperor did not catch up to them. He had most likely given up. However, they were stopped by another person. It was the old beggar and Di Guanlong. The old beggar looked at Zhou Xuanji and chuckled as he said, Brat, I like you. Take me as your teacher. Di Guanlong frowned and looked at Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji asked with narrowed eyes, Who are you, sir? Lan Xiangying drew her sword and was prepared to fight. Before they set off for the mission, Han Shuzi had instructed her to bring Zhou Xuanji back alive. Who I am is not important. What's important is that by following me, you can reach the heights of the Divine Cliffs, Han Shuzi. The old beggar said proudly. He placed his hands on his waist, looking as cocky as he could be. Before Zhou Xuanji could speak, Lan Xiangying was already furious. She said coldly, Sir, why are you looking down on the Divine Cliff? Di Guanlong snorted and said, So what if it's the Divine Cliff? We're going to the Divine Cliff to kill Han Shuzi. I advise you not to go back. The Divine Cliff will be destroyed by me. Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji and the others' expressions changed. It was Han Shuzi. He was the Lord of the Divine Cliff, a powerhouse of the Center God province. Back then, even Devil Emperor Dugu was not a match for him. This person's tone was arrogant. He said that he was going to kill Han Shuzi. Di Guanlong grabbed the old beggar's shoulder and snorted, Don't waste your breath with them. Kill Han Shuzi first. You only know how to waste time. As he spoke, he pulled the old beggar away. The old beggar could not resist at all and said to Zhou Xuanji, Brat, wait for me. I'm the destined master. If you miss me, you will regret it. His voice became more and more distant, and soon, he and Di Guanlong disappeared over the horizon. They were heading towards the Divine Cliff. Calm. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 424. After the old beggar and Di Guanlong left, Zhou Xuanji and the others fell silent. Bai Suan popped her head out from Zhou Xuanji's chest and said, "Little Ji Xian, let's not go back." The two people just now were very powerful. They gave me goosebumps. They are much more powerful than the big sister beside you. The nine heavens' divine snake's senses were extremely sharp. Back then, with his 7th rank cultivation, he could already sense that Zhou Xuanji came from another world. Zhou Xuanji looked at Lan Shangying. Lan Shangying sighed and said, "That person is indeed very powerful. I feel as if I am facing the Cliff Master. However, it will be very difficult for us to return." "Why?" Zhou Xuanji asked. "With their speed, they will be able to reach the Divine Cliff in less than 2 days." "Because we've been ambushed," Lan Shangying said faintly as she looked around. Zhou Xuanji and Shi Shenzong were stunned and took out their swords, preparing to fight. There were undulating mountains and forests in all directions, and there were no signs of people in sight. The sound of the wind rustling the leaves could be heard clearly. After a while, a sneer rang out. "Lan Shangying, right? You are truly sharp. You managed to detect even this." Nangong Lai's voice rang out. His laughter was filled with killing intent. Following this, a powerful gale descended from the sky and turned into Nangong Lai's figure. Over 100 golden immortals rushed over from all directions, surrounding Zhou Xuanji and the others. Lan Shangying said coldly, "Nangong Lai, do you really want to oppose the Divine Cliff?" Nangong Lai was only a rank 1 roving bandit. Was he worthy of becoming enemies with the Divine Cliff? Previously, she did not take Nangong Lai seriously at all. Nangong Lai smiled contemptuously and said, "Do you know who that person was?" Lan Shangying frowned. Although she felt that Di Guanlong was very strong, she didn't know his name. "Have you heard of the Crown Dragon Netherblade? It's an existence that can fight against the Buddha." Nangong Lai laughed, taking pleasure in the misfortune of others. "Crown Dragon Darkblade." Lan Shangying and Shi Shenzong's expressions changed drastically. Zhou Xuanji had just arrived and had not heard of this name. Lan Shangying's face quickly turned deathly pale, and fear appeared in her eyes. Zhou Xuanji frowned. Could it be that the Crown Dragon Netherblade really had the strength to kill Han Shuzi? I'm a jinx? He had just ascended and he had to drag him to the Death Cliff? He didn't want to be the enemy of the whole world and need the Divine Cliff to protect him from the wind and rain. Kill. Today, these 3 can forget about leaving, Nangong Lai said with a cruel smile. After he finished speaking, he charged towards Lan Shangying. 100 golden immortals shot over like sharp arrows, and Bai Suan was so frightened that she hid in Zhou Xuanji's arms. Zhou Xuanji immediately unleashed the primordial chaos sword shadow. Millions of sword shadows appeared and surrounded the 3 of them, forming a primordial mountains and rivers. Everyone was shocked by this scene. Even Nangong Lai couldn't help but widen his eyes. The primordial sword shadow was unstoppable as it charged towards them. Shi Shenzong sighed and said, "Are you already this strong?" The primordial chaos sword shadow was extremely majestic. It was not much weaker than the Emperor's Wei Thousand Hand Sword Buddha and the Ancestral Dragon Sword. Boom, boom, boom. The 100 Heavenly Revolution Golden Immortals were stopped, but Nangong Lai's aura was unstoppable as he charged straight at Lan Shangying. Lan Shangying wasn't afraid, and she charged forward. The 2 Void Extreme Immortals soared into the sky and started fighting. The might of their battle made Zhou Xuanji and the others feel quite uncomfortable, but they had no choice but to fight with their full strength. Zhou Xuanji drew close to Shi Shenzong and unleashed all sorts of sword techniques, blocking all of the golden immortals. However, their attacks were simply too ferocious, and they quickly reached him. He used world reincarnation to reflect all of the attacks, causing the golden immortals' chi and blood to roil, making them feel quite uncomfortable. What kind of evil divine ability is this? Everyone be careful. Is there something strange about his fleshly body? Kill Shi Shenzong first. The 100 or so golden immortals disgust and fear, and their gazes locked onto Shi Shenzong's body. Shi Shenzong had just become a great emperor, so how could he be a match for them? Zhou Xuanji couldn't let them get close to Shi Shinzong. He directly sent his magic energy into the Ghost Emperor Extreme Abyss, summoning the Extreme Abyss. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Countless eerie winds started to blow, and a dark space suddenly appeared behind Zhou Xuanji. There was a blood moon in the sky, and it was the only source of light. This dark space quickly expanded, devouring all of them. The surrounding 100 kilometers became an extreme abyss, and even Nangong Lai and Lan Shangying could not dodge in time. Countless evil spirits flew out from the depths of the darkness, looking like an army of locusts. There were countless of them, and they were dazzling. The 100 or so golden immortals were quickly surrounded and attacked by the evil spirits, and an evil aura filled the heavens and earth. The evil spirits wanted to devour Nangong Lai, but Nangong Lai's magic energy was powerful, and the evil spirits were unable to get close at all. What sword is this? Shi Shinzong's eyes widened. It was the first time he had seen a sword that could summon a world barrier. So powerful. As a sword cultivator, he felt incredibly envious. It was the first time Zhou Xuanji had summoned the Extreme Abyss. Looking out, countless evil spirits roared, and the scene was incredibly oppressive. The 100 or so golden immortals all unleashed divine abilities, destroying the evil spirits. The evil spirit army could only tie them down and could not deal any substantial damage to them. Seeing this, Zhou Xuanji condensed 9 sword souls, and the 9 flame chimera demon sword appeared in his left hand. The divine energy from the 2 god-slaying legendary swords entered his body, and a 9-sword violet Tai Chi diagram appeared on his forehead as his aura exploded out. He became serious. His body blurred as he directly unleashed 10,000 ultimate steps. A massacre officially unfolded. Shi Shinzong's eyes widened, and cold sweat poured down his forehead like rain. So powerful. He suddenly thought of Zhou Xuanji's past accomplishments. This brat could always fight those with higher cultivation stages. Now that he was a 5th Revolution Golden Immortal, would he be invincible among Golden Immortals? Soon, Zhou Xuanji's performance proved his guess. With 10,000 ultimate steps, 9 sword souls, universal attraction, and world reincarnation, Zhou Xuanji killed 3 golden immortals in less than 5 breaths. The most powerful was a 6th Revolution Golden Immortal, but they could not stop him at all. The other golden immortals were furious and surrounded him. Under the iron mask, Zhou Xuanji's eyes were filled with condescension. He did not take them seriously at all. High up in the sky, Nangong Lai had the upper hand. He noticed Zhou Xuanji's performance and frowned. This brat's talent might not be any weaker than Shi Shinzong's. Since it's so, I must kill him. After the thought, he waved his fan ferociously, and 2 waves of intense flames inundated Lan Shangying. He turned and charged toward Zhou Xuanji. Avoid Extreme Immortal was incredibly fast. Zhou Xuanji sensed danger and instinctively raised his swords and slashed upward. The 9 sword souls turned into sword light and shot towards Nangong Lai. In the blink of an eye, Nangong Lai held the fan in his right hand and pressed down, forcefully dissipating the sword chi. However, because of this, he also stopped. Lan Shangying's body spun as she slashed out with her sword. Sword light flashed out of the extreme abyss, and a clang sounded out as Nangong Lai used his other fan to block the sword. Zhou Xuanji felt furious. This old fellow dared to sneak attack him. He immediately took out all of his legendary swords, and over 100 swords appeared around him. With a thought, he used the 10,000 sword dragon incantation, and all of the swords were wrapped with dragon-shaped sword chi. Kill! He gave a low cry, and all of the swords exploded out with incredible speed, shooting out in all directions. Calm. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 425. All of the legendary swords shot out, and Zhou Xuanji fought 100 golden immortals by himself. The sword souls behind him attacked one after another. Every time they attacked, they would injure the enemy, causing them to scream in pain. So many swords. Could it be that these swords have spirits? Damn it, He's just a fifth revolution golden immortal, but he's able to stop all of us. This is a great humiliation. I can't tolerate it. Didn't you guys eat? Use your full strength." As the golden immortals defended against the attacks of the divine swords, wraiths, and sword shadows, they suddenly began to criticize and curse. With Nangong Lai watching from above, how could they not panic? They all unleashed their trump cards and swore to kill Zhou Xuanji. Unfortunately, it was of no use. One gold immortal after another was slain. The speed and strength of the divine swords were gradually increasing, because Zhou Xuanji was drawing on the power of the heavens and the earth. After coming to the boundless world, he could not freely display his overlord of the world, but he had been working hard. After all, the power of heaven and earth in the Great Thousand World could not be compared to the northern wilderness region. Even if he only comprehended a small portion of it, it was enough to crush these golden immortals. Nangong Lai's cultivation level was slightly higher than Lan Shangying's. Unfortunately, his spirit powers were not as strong as Lan Shangying's, and he could not shake her off. This was the power of the Divine Cliff's core disciples. They were the cornerstones of the Divine Cliff and could hold their own. One golden immortal after another died tragically, but Zhou Xuanji's magic energy was increasing. He was using world internalization, relying on the god swords to absorb the enemy's cultivation. How could 100 golden immortals be so easily killed? Sure, Shenzong sighed in amazement, and he was completely convinced by Zhou Xuanji. In terms of talent, he was really inferior to this guy. Nangong Lai panicked. These golden immortals were his blood, sweat, and tears. How could he tolerate them dying one after another? He did his best to break away from Lan Shangying and kill Zhou Xuanji, but it was a pity that he could not do so. Only now did he realize how terrifying the core disciples of the Divine Cliff were. Previously, he had looked down on the other party because she was a woman, and now he had to pay a heavy price. "Stop! Let's end it here." Nangong Lai couldn't bear the pressure and shouted. Lan Shangying said coldly, "Tell your subordinates to retreat first." Just when she spoke, the golden immortals quickly retreated, distancing themselves from Zhou Xuanji's attack. They really couldn't hold on any longer. Nangong Lai finally relented. Lan Shangying and Nangong Lai retreated at the same time. The two of them pulled apart, and Lan Shangying quickly came before Zhou Xuanji and Shi Shenzong to prevent Nangong Lai from playing any tricks. All of the legendary swords returned to Zhou Xuanji's side, ready to strike. Nangong Lai stared at him fiercely, gritted his teeth, and said, "Kid, tell me your name." "Ji Xian," Zhou Xuanji said calmly. "Remember this name and find a master to read your fortune." "Very good," Nangong Lai said fiercely. With that, he left with his subordinates. He did not intend to stop here. He wanted to bring his subordinates back first before coming here alone. He must kill Zhou Xuanji before he matured. Otherwise, if he met Zhou Xuanji and Shi Shenzong again in the future, how could he survive? Lan Shangying turned and looked at Zhou Xuanji and said, "Come back to the Divine Cliff with me." Her heart had already flown to the Divine Cliff. Zhou Xuanji had no objections, and the three of them quickly headed towards the Divine Cliff. After passing through the dense fog, Zhou Xuanji and the others returned to the Divine Cliff. The Divine Cliff was located at the top of a high plateau. It was known as the cliff where immortals and gods looked down on the mortal world. The three of them were shocked to find that the Divine Cliff had not been destroyed. The disciples were still coming and going. They did not panic when they encountered a strong enemy. They flew directly toward the Cliff Master Hall. After they landed in front of the gate, Lan Shangying bowed with cupped fists and said, "Cliff Master, we have returned." The core disciples were not the Cliff Master's disciples. Only the direct disciples were. Their status was above the core disciples, and they had the qualifications to fight for the position of Cliff Master. "Come in." Han Shuzi's voice sounded, and the door opened. Zhou Xuanji and Lan Shangying let out sighs of relief. From his tone, it was obvious that he was not seriously injured. He was as calm and unfathomable as ever. After entering the hall, the three of them saw Han Shuzi standing before the statue with a smile on his face. Ji, you indeed didn't disappoint me. Even though you didn't stop Shi Shinzong from becoming a great emperor, you brought Shi Shinzong back to the divine cliff. Han Shuzi lightly laughed, as if he was not afraid of Shi Shinzong at all. Shi Shinzong's talent was indeed incredible, but it was not to the point where the divine cliff absolutely needed him. If they dared to have evil intentions, he would just have to kill them. Zhou Xuanji replied, "It's all thanks to Fairy Lan." Lan Xiangying did not say anything. Seeing that Han Shuzi was fine, she felt at ease. Shi Shinzong silently sized up Han Shuzi. In the Center God Province, Han Shuzi was an immortal-like existence who reigned above all creatures. There were not many existences who could compare to him. After Zhou Xuanji and Han Shuzi exchanged pleasantries, Lan Xiangying asked if Di Guanlong had come to attack them. Han Shuzi stroked his beard and smiled as he said, "He indeed came, but he left." Lan Xiangying felt quite confused and asked, "Why?" Di Guanlong was an existence who could fight against the Buddha, so he most likely would not lose to Han Shuzi. Even if he could not defeat him, they should have fought for a while. Han Shuzi gave a mysterious smile and looked at Shi Shinzong as he said, "Second-class Great Emperor, from today onwards, you will enjoy the treatment of an elite disciple and will follow by Jixian's side." Shi Shinzong nodded. This was the best arrangement. He was not interested in the divine cliff and had only come for Zhou Xuanji. Following this, Han Shuzi waved his hand, signaling for the three of them to leave. Even though Lan Xiangying felt quite confused, she did not dare to ask too much and left. After they walked out of the palace and the doors closed, Han Shuzi coughed up a mouthful of blood, and his face became incredibly pale. He muttered to himself, "Di Guanlong is truly powerful." Behind him, the god statue in the center suddenly opened its eyes and said, "Di Guanlong's target is you. You do not have any enmity with him, so I'm afraid there's a deeper scheme behind this." Han Shuzi looked back and said, "Thank you for your help." The god statue said in a deep voice, "You might not be able to protect this first-class great emperor. If you insist on protecting him, you will have to pay a great price." The 12th on the great emperor's steel. The top 10 were all undying legends who had not appeared for a long time. If Zhou Xuanji's identity was exposed, the entire Center God Province would fall into chaos. Han Shuzi sighed and said, "If the divine cliff wants to rise again, we must rely on him. Without him, the divine cliff might fall. Back then, we were used to fight against the demonic emperor, and now the demonic emperor is about to make a comeback." He did not finish his sentence, but his meaning was clear. He wanted to take a gamble. The god statue's gaze became deep, making it impossible to see through him. After leaving the palace, Zhou Xuanji said goodbye to Lan Xiangying and brought Shi Shinzong back to his residence. Seeing Shi Shinzong, Fei Hai immediately became wary, thinking that a disciple had come to steal his business. When he found out that this person was Shi Shinzong, his attitude instantly changed, becoming fervent. Shi Shinzong was the most famous ascender in the past 100 years. He continuously pestered Shi Shinzong and asked him questions, making Shi Shinzong feel quite helpless but also quite pleased. Zhou Xuanji smirked. He suddenly realized that Shi Shinzong was still quite arrogant. Chapter 426. After Zhou Xuanji brought Shi Shinzong back, they did not go out anymore. Fei Hai helped Shi Shinzong register as an elite disciple. In less than 10 days, Jixian's name had become the talk of the entire Divine Cliff. It turned out that Nangong Lai bore a grudge against Zhou Xuanji, so he spread the news of Shi Shinzong being kidnapped by Jixian to let the world know of Jixian's existence. After all, the Divine Cliff had many enemies. How could those enemies allow a prodigy to rise? They would definitely think of a way to kill him. At that moment, all the disciples of the Divine Cliff were searching for Jixian's residence. Zhou Xuanji lived in the core disciple region, which ordinary disciples were not allowed to enter. But the core disciples came to visit one by one. There were a total of 69 core disciples in the Divine Cliff. Excluding him, there were 69 void extreme immortals. This was a conservative estimate. This was because most of the Divine Cliff's 36 envoys had surpassed golden immortals. Other than that, there were also the leaders of the Divine Cliff. The Divine Cliff's power made Zhou Xuanji sigh in amazement. This was the Great Thousand World. Among the core disciples, the one who left the deepest impression on Zhou Xuanji was the bald youth he met when he first entered the Divine Cliff. His name was Wu Qiu, and it was said that he was one of the top core disciples and had the potential to compete for the position of Cliffmaster. Han Shuzi had high hopes for him, and it would not be long before he became a personal disciple. However, Han Shuzi's first disciple, Yang Yutian, loathed him somewhat. The enmity between the two of them was widespread in the Divine Cliff. Wu Qiu had a warm personality, and after chatting with Zhou Xuanji for a while, they started to call each other brother, which made Fei Hai dumbfounded. In Fei Hai's eyes, the gap between Zhou Xuanji and Wu Qiu was insurmountable. He did not expect Wu Qiu to be so enthusiastic. Those who did not know would think that he was trying to curry favor with Zhou Xuanji. 1 month later, Zhou Xuanji was finally free and could focus on cultivation, and he would occasionally give pointers to Shi Shinzong. His understanding of sword souls far surpassed Shi Shinzong's, and with just a few words, he was able to make Shi Shinzong fall into deep thought. Fei Hai really wanted Zhou Xuanji's guidance, but he did not practice the sword, so he was too embarrassed to ask. Time flew by. There were less than 7 days left until the Ascender assessment. Analyzed that the sword owner has reached 92 years old. Gotcha started. Ding! Congratulations, sword owner, for drawing Intimidating Spirit, Light Execution Water Dragon, Peerless Beast Taming Bag. The sword spirit's voice sounded in Zhou Xuanji's mind, and he opened his eyes. At this moment, he was comprehending the power of heaven and earth in the courtyard. Shi Shinzong and Fei Hai were in another courtyard and did not disturb him. Information about the divine sword appeared before his eyes. Sword name, Light Execution Water Dragon Grade. Intimidating Spirit Description. The Light Execution Water Dragon was a mutated bloodline of the Dragon Clan. It possessed great power, but it fell unexpectedly and was refined into a divine sword by the heavenly thunder. Zhou Xuanji took a look and was not interested. Once upon a time, the intimidating spirit sword could make him wild with joy. Right now, his heart was filled with worries about the world annihilation, yin-yang annihilation, not to mention a world-destroying existence. Ancient gazing, disaster-releasing, universe essence, overturning heavens, heaven span, 9 extremities, primordial chaos. He had an inexplicable feeling that the primordial world might not be the end. His strength was limitless. He shook his head and smiled. Then he took out the beast-taming pouch. This bag looked very ordinary, and there were many red threads on its surface. There was an independent space inside the beast-taming bag, which could allow demonic beasts to survive. He called Bai Suwen over to give a try. Bai Suwen bit his wrist and shouted, "Don't even think about it." After cursing, he ran and disappeared. Zhou Xuanji was infuriated and mumbled, "I will find a chance to boil you into snake soup." Half a day later, near dusk, emissary Li Qing came to visit. He said that it was time to participate in the Ascendant examination. The Ascendant examination was held in the mysterious Tribulation Crater. The mysterious Tribulation Crater was the Dao Heaven Sect's territory. It connected to the underground world and had existed for millions of years. The Dao Heaven Sect's Mount Divine Cliff had a longer history, and so did their foundation. In the Divine Province, the Dao Heaven Sect was definitely one of the top 3 Overlord-level factions. All the Ascendants in the past 100 years would gather in the mysterious Tribulation Crater. Most of the newly ascended would not participate and would wait for the next round. But there were some geniuses who were more daring. It was said that the Hegemin Sword Emperor was like this. A newborn calf was not afraid of a tiger, but he lost miserably. Each ascendant could only participate in the Ascendant examination once, and the maximum time limit was 500 years. In other words, if one did not participate within 500 years, it would be equivalent to giving up. The ascendant examination was held jointly by all the major factions. Other than allowing their disciples to shine, it also allowed independent ascendants to have a chance to be chosen by the major factions. Of course, there was another explanation. That was the internal strife of the major factions. In the ascendant examination, life and death were up to fate. Under emissary Li Qing's lead, Zhou Xuanji came to the divine Cliff City's gate. He did not bring Bai Suan. The ascendant examination did not allow external help after all. Shi Shenzong was still too weak, so emissary Li Qing did not recommend him to participate. Shi Shenzong did not force him either. In front of the city gate, 33 ascendants were waiting. They were not all human cultivators. There were also other races. It had to be said that the northern wilderness region had really declined. Looking at these ascendants, they were all beyond great tribulation scattered immortals. Zhou Xuanji attracted everyone's attention. He was the only one who ascended to become a core disciple. How could the other ascendants not care? Wu Mingyi felt the most complicated. He ascended with Zhou Xuanji, and they even became a joke. Emissary Li Qing took out a gourd-shaped fan, which quickly grew in size and carried everyone away. Along the way, emissary Li Qing began to explain the rules of the ascendant examination. Only the top 10 would be rewarded. In the examination, they could work together or fight alone. They could use any means. When the time came, everyone would have an identity medallion. After crushing the medallion, the Tao Heaven sect's powerhouses would teleport them out. The specific rules of the examination would be announced by the Tao Heaven sect. The ascendant examination this time is different from the past. Many geniuses are disciples of top-tier factions in the divine province and were purposely sent to the mortal realm to be nurtured. You must be careful. The most powerful one is called Mo Yuha. He's the son of the sovereign demon sect's sect lord. He's already a 10th revolution golden immortal and is half a step in a void extreme immortal. Just as emissary Li Qing spoke, the disciples became restless. They had all killed their way here from the mortal realm and felt that people like Mo Yuha were shameless. Those mortals who fought with him were truly tragic. Zhou Xuanji silently remembered Mo Yuha. He had heard of the sovereign demon sect, the #1 demonic faction in the divine province. The divine cliff was no match for them. 200,000 years ago, the sovereign demon sect had almost destroyed the divine cliff. Back then, the sovereign demon sect had been extremely powerful and had almost unified the divine province. This was similar to the northern wilderness region's Tanhua sect. However, the sovereign demon sect was still an overlord-level faction, and no one dared to offend them. Emissary Li Qing seemed to remember something and continued to say, "Apart from Mo Yuha, there's another person you must be careful of. His name is Gu Mayuan, and he's a descendant of the demonic emperor bloodline. You all should know the origins of the demonic emperor bloodline." Chapter 427. Top 10. The Divine Cliff's ascenders were in an uproar. There were at least 1,000 ascenders in this ascender examination. Most of them had been in the Great Thousand World for hundreds of years and were prepared to fight to the death. Top 10 was extremely difficult. Of course, some felt that top 10 was not a problem. There were those who were confident that their lives were higher than the heavens. After all, they had fought their way out of the mortal realm and defeated many powerful enemies. Zhou Xuanji sat down and began to sense the power of the world. The others quietened down. There was no use bragging now. Only when they reached the mysterious tribulation crater would they be able to see their true abilities. Emissary Li Qing smiled and did not speak much. He focused on controlling the gourd fan. The divine cliff was very far from the mysterious tribulation crater, and they might encounter danger along the way. The Center God province was much safer than the mortal realm because there were too many powerful cultivators here. Too many powerful cultivators would do anything to become more powerful. The best way to describe it was that a fellow Taoist would rather die than a fellow Taoist. The mysterious tribulation crater had existed for an unknown period of time. It was created by the heavens and the earth. The crater was 1,000 miles wide and was filled with canyons that led deep underground. It was extremely majestic. At the edge of the crater, there were castles in all directions. These were the structures that the Tao Heaven sect used to guard the mysterious tribulation crater. Each one was guarded by a void extreme immortal. Above the mysterious tribulation crater, there were layers of clouds. The Tao Heaven sect was above the clouds and was formed by thousands of floating islands. Looking from above, these floating islands looked like a Tai Chi diagram. At this moment, the Tao Heaven sect was extremely lively. With the arrival of the Ascender tribulation, guests from all over gathered at the Tao Heaven sect, causing the sect to be in an uproar. In a palace, the Tao Heaven sect's elder Li Zhangqi was receiving the sovereign demon sect. Li Zhangqi wore a Taoist robe and had a goatee. He sat on the main seat and chatted happily with the sovereign demon sect's elder, Guanhong. Guanhong had a muscular body and looked like an iron tower. He wore a black robe that looked like a skeleton, and when he smiled, he looked extremely savage. The other Tao Heaven sect disciples in the palace did not look well. After all, the Tao Heaven sect belonged to the righteous path. They had righteous hearts and did not like the sovereign demon sect, but they were too powerful. After so many years, the Tao Heaven sect has become more powerful. Congratulations. Our sovereign demon sect cannot compare. What are you talking about? This Mo Yuha is a genius that only appears once in a million years. In terms of talent, our Tao Heaven sect has lost. Haha, his talent is indeed amazing, but the Tao Heaven sect's disciples aren't bad either. This time's Ascender test will be the time for Nephew Mo to soar into the skies. I hope so. Li Zhangqi and Guanhong flattered each other. Both were very happy. Mo Yua sat by Guanhong's side. He didn't seem interested at all. He stared at his own fingernails and waited idly. His face was devilishly handsome, and his white hair was coiled into a golden crown. Although compared to Guanhong, his stature was smaller, his aura was not lacking, making it hard for others to ignore him. The Tao Heaven sect disciples looked at him from time to time with hostility in their eyes. Mo Yua's reputation was too great. After ascending for 300 years, his name had already spread throughout the Center God province. Although he was a second-grade great sovereign, his cultivation talent was not any weaker than a first-grade great sovereign. It was highly possible that he would become the next sect master of the sovereign demon sect. At this time, a disciple ran in and said anxiously, "Elderly, the Buddha Ghost cult is here." Buddha Ghost sect. Guanhong's expression instantly changed. In the Center God province, the sovereign demon sect and the Buddha Ghost sect were mortal enemies. Once the followers of both sides met, they would definitely draw their swords against each other, and the result would be either death or injury. This was especially true for the two sect masters. Li Zhangqi's eyes sparkled as he said, "Receive them well. Let them in." Guanhong's expression turned hostile immediately. After flying for 5 days, the Divine Cliffs group finally arrived at the mysterious tribulation crater. Looking from afar, everyone was shocked by the mysterious tribulation crater. Zhou Xuanji was the same. He guessed that a star had fallen and smashed the ground into such a state. How big must it be? Emissary Li Qing said with a smile. The truly spectacular thing is not the surface, but the underground. Having heard this, the group became even more curious about the mysterious tribulation crater. Soon, they came to a garrison city of the Tao Heaven sect. After revealing their identities, the Tao Heaven sect disciples led them to the Tao Heaven sect, which was high up in the clouds. An hour later, Emissary Li Qing brought Zhou Xuanji to the Tao Heaven sect's meeting hall. As for the other disciples, they were brought to their residences. This caused the ascended disciples to feel jealous. This is differential treatment. He is someone who can take away Shi Shinzong. But so what? I can defeat Shi Shinzong too. He is a third-class great emperor. What about us? Be content. It's the same everywhere. Everyone's talent is eye-catching. They sighed in amazement as they entered the residence. Zhou Xuanji followed Emissary Li Qing to the meeting hall. In the hall, there were only Li Zhangqi and a few Tao Heaven sect disciples. There were no other sections. Emissary Li Qing cupped his fist and smiled. Long time no see, elderly. Li Zhanqi nodded and chuckled. This must be Ji Xian, who rose to fame recently. A third-class great emperor. Impressive. It's rare, even in the Dao Heaven sect. A third-class great emperor was not worthy of his attention, but Zhou Xuanji could make a second-class great emperor, Shi Shinzong, follow him. This alone was enough for him to rope him in. It was always good to have another friend. Emissary Li Qing shook his head with a smile. He's all right. Let's see if he can show his brilliance in this ascender examination. The two began chatting. Zhou Xuanji did not speak, but listened quietly. This was Emissary Li Qing's instruction. He was probably afraid that Zhou Xuanji would be bewitched by the Dao Heaven sect. Half an hour later, Li Zhanqi let them leave. Before he left, he reminded the various factions about the Ascender's factions, which was a special treat. After leaving the hall, a Dao Heaven sect disciple brought them to the Divine Cliff's residence. After entering the residence, Emissary Li Qing said, "See, the Dao Heaven sect is full of sanctimonious people." His tone was filled with disdain. Zhou Xuanji laughed. "Weren't you flattering him happily?" The two of them found a guest room to stay in. Tomorrow was the Ascender examination. The specific rules would only be known tomorrow. At night, 3 Dao Heaven sect disciples came to visit. They made an identity medallion for each ascended disciple and recorded their name and sect. After returning to his room, Zhou Xuanji sat on his bed and played with the identity medallion in his hand. The medallion was as big as a jade pendant. It was entirely red, and 3 small words were carved on it. Divine Cliff, Ji Xian. Tomorrow. I look forward to it. Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself with a smile. As long as he got first place, he would receive the greatest reward. According to Han Shuzi, it was enough for him to ascend to 10th Revolution Golden Immortal within 10 years. By then, with the all-evil yin-yang destruction, he would be as powerful as a Void Extreme Immortal. This night, he was not the only one who looked forward to it. The next morning, boom, everyone was woken up. A solemn voice came. The Ascender examination is about to begin. All Ascended disciples, please head to the mysterious tribulation crater and wait. Just when the voice finished, Zhou Xuanji sensed many auras sweeping toward the ground. Calm. Wonderful book house. Chapter 428. Zhou Xuanji walked out of the guest room, and Emissary Li Qing was already waiting outside. He looked at Zhou Xuanji and said, "Go down. You will have to rely on yourself from now on." The other Divine Cliff's ascended disciples soared into the sky and into the clouds. Zhou Xuanji nodded. He came into the clouds with the 8-step sword lunge and dashed downward quickly. Swoosh! A silhouette flew past him. That person was much faster than him. He glanced over and saw that it was Mo Yuha. Of course, he could not recognize Mo Yuha yet. Hundreds of ascenders had gathered in the vast, mysterious tribulation crater. Some were in groups, while others were alone. Looking from above, it was difficult to spot them. Zhou Xuanji did not fly toward the Divine Cliff's disciples. He landed on a giant rock and sat down casually. What happened yesterday had already estranged him from his peers. He did not bother to form a group. The ascenders landed one after another. Whispers could be heard from all directions. Some burst out in laughter, seeming very excited. Zhou Xuanji looked up and saw a billowing sea of clouds. People from various sects and the Dao Heaven sect disciples stood on the clouds and looked down. This scene reminded him of the Beast Colosseum. He was one of the beasts. Zhou Xuanji shook his head with a smile and stopped thinking about it. He continued internalizing qi to store more magic energy in the Tianxia map. Half an hour later, all the ascenders gathered in the mysterious tribulation crater. There were more than 1,300 of them, and they were all golden immortals. There are 2 rules for this ascender examination. One is to collect earth core crystals, and the other is to eliminate other ascenders. The longer you last, the better your result. The number of earth core crystals for those who are eliminated will not be counted. The remaining ascenders will be ranked according to the number of earth core crystals. This examination will last for a month. At that time, I will project your battle situation into the sky for everyone to see." The majestic voice came again, and many ascenders were shocked. If everyone could see their performance, wouldn't it mean that they could not use underhanded methods? Of course, they might embarrass themselves. "Now go underground and collect Earth core crystals." The majestic voice continued. No one could find him. More than 1,300 senders dived into the crevices and canyons, charging toward the depths of the Earth. Zhou Xuanji was in no hurry. Rather than collecting the geocentric flame crystals himself, he might as well let them collect first, and then he could loot them. Soon, he was the only one left on the ground. The people in the clouds were discussing. Who is that person? Scared? He seems to be a core disciple of the Divine Cliff. He's that Ji Xian who subdued Shi Shinzou. TSK. The final victory of this test belongs to Mo Yuha. Not necessarily. Guma Yuan from the Buddha Ghost cult isn't bad either. Guess which sect's disciple will kill first? Zhou Xuanji ignored all the discussions above him. After a while, he turned into a stream of sword light and dove into the crack. After he disappeared, a layer of golden light covered the profound tribulation crater. It was a formation to prevent people from taking advantage of the situation. Zhou Xuanji quickly traveled through the cracks. He found that the cracks and canyons were all connected, and he could not see the end or the depths. Two people were already fighting in front of him. Zhou Xuanji went around them and headed underground at full speed. At this moment, he turned into a gust of wind, moving in extremely fast speed. Very quickly, he found a deserted cave and entered it to cultivate. At the same time, images appeared in the sky above the profound tribulation crater, showing the situation of all the ascenders. Some were diving down crazily, some were fighting, and some were hiding in the dark, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Zhou Xuanji was not eye-catching. The most domineering was Mo Yuha. This guy was not in a hurry to find Earth core crystals. He hunted down the ascenders everywhere, and whoever he encountered, he would fight without saying a word. Guan Hong, the sovereign demon sect's elder, burst into laughter and ignored everyone else. The sects whose disciples were killed did not dare to say anything. On the tallest floating island, in a temple, an old man was lighting incense. He was the sect lord of the Dao Heaven sect, Taichu Yu Dao. Li Zhangqi walked up to him and cupped his fist respectfully. "Senior apprentice brother, the test has begun. Do you have any instructions?" Taichu Yu Dao turned around. His face was filled with vicissitudes, and he wore a white robe. He smiled amiably. "Nothing much. Just prevent the powerful cultivators from interfering in the dark." He looked weak, and half of his body was buried in the ground. But he was actually one of the powerhouses of the Center God province. His divine abilities were unparalleled, and he was once known as the most powerful person below the immortals. "Senior apprentice brother, who do you think will win?" Li Zhangqi asked curiously. This matter was of great importance, and he could rope in the sect that Ascender was from. Taichu Yu Dao glanced at him and chuckled. "The youngest person will win." Li Zhangqi was stunned. The youngest? Most Ascenders were above 5,000 years old. How could he know their exact age? He could not possibly ask them one by one. The seniors of the sects might not know either. Taichu Yu Dao stroked his long beard and said with a smile, "This test will be very exciting." Li Zhangqi was even more confused. It was the first time he heard his senior apprentice brother say such a thing. Time passed. 7 days had passed, and more than 400 Ascenders had been eliminated. The sounds of battle underground rose and fell for a long time. Zhou Xuanji's ears almost grew calluses. This day, he got up slowly and took out the Ghost Emperor Extreme Abyss, preparing to hunt. He flew down quickly. Soon, he encountered an Ascender. A 6th Revolution Golden Immortal was very powerful. This person was hunting as well. Once he saw Zhou Xuanji, he charged at him immediately. This person had messy long hair and wore black armor. He held a long spear in each hand, and the cape on his back burned like a blazing flame. Zhou Xuanji cut off his right arm with 10,000 ultimate steps straight away. His blood spilled into the abyss. How can it be? The black-armored ascender was almost scared out of his wits. Just when he was about to turn around, the Ghost Emperor Extreme Abyss pierced through his chest. Boom! Zhou Xuanji pressed him against the wall and stepped on his shoulders. He looked down at him with a cold gaze. Hand over all your earth core crystals or die. The black-armored ascender understood immediately that he could not defeat Zhou Xuanji. He took out his identity medallion and was about to crush it. Zhou Xuanji was faster. He snatched the medallion and threw it into the ground. You! He opened his eyes wide and cursed furiously. Zhou Xuanji absorbed his magic energy with world internalization, which frightened him so much that he immediately shut up. Cold sweat covered his body. He immediately took out 6 earth core crystals and gave them to Zhou Xuanji. The earth core crystals were of different sizes. They were rocks that looked like lava. Zhou Xuanji took out the truth sword and pierced it into the black-armored ascender's body. Do you have more? He asked. The black-armored ascender replied instinctively, yes, a lot of them. The next second, his expression turned into horror. Zhou Xuanji looked at him with a cold smile, which frightened him so much that he took out another 20 earth core crystals. More? Of course. What's going on? The black-armored ascender took out another 8 earth core crystals. More? Zhou Xuanji said with a mocking smile. Chapter 429. There's really nothing else. The black-armored ascender wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He stared at Zhou Xuanji, feeling incredibly terrified. He did not understand why he would uncontrollably reveal the truth. What an evil divine ability. Zhou Xuanji stored all the earth core crystals into the supreme storage and continued to absorb his magic energy. One had to admit that this fellow was ruthless enough to have so many geocentric flame crystals. At the same time, it also showed that geocentric flame crystals were not as hard to obtain as he had imagined. Fortunately, he had discovered this beforehand. Otherwise, they might not be able to win even if they took action in the last few days. What if someone was stealing the earth core crystals all the time? How much longer do you want to suck? The black-armored ascender could not help but ask in grief and indignation. If he were to continue absorbing like this, his magic power would be sucked dry. At that time, any random person would be able to kill him. Zhou Xuanji replied calmly. Are you in a hurry? The black-armored ascender almost vomited blood. If it were you, wouldn't you be anxious? I beg you. His voice was as soft as a mosquito's as he pleaded. Zhou Xuanji smiled disdainfully. He turned into a stream of sword light and dove deeper into the abyss. The black-armored ascender heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly flew away. He didn't have the guts to look for his identity token, so he could only escape from the profound tribulation pit and admit defeat. In the following period of time, Zhou Xuanji madly searched for ascenders. Not only did he rob them of their geocentric flame crystals, but he also absorbed their cultivation to strengthen himself. This scene attracted the attention of many people outside. Those people are so stupid. Why did they clearly state how many geocentric flame crystals they have? Something's wrong. He seems to have the ability to absorb other people's cultivation. Indeed, listen carefully. The disciples of the Divine Cliff are really good. This kid is very strong. Almost all his enemies are killed in an instant. Not only were there images in the sky, but there were also sounds. However, the sounds were very faint, and if one listened carefully, they would be able to hear the voices of various ascenders. Sage Yutian and the Celestial Hall soldiers stood on the clouds as well. He frowned. He felt that the Divine Cliff's Jixian was very similar to Zhou Xuanji. That shouldn't be the case. Why did Zhou Xuanji ascend to the Divine Cliff? He couldn't understand, but he had heard that Jixian had subdued Shi Shinzong. Zhou Xuanji had defeated Shi Shinzong in the mortal realm, and it was he who persuaded Shi Shinzong to ascend. If Jixian was really Zhou Xuanji, what should he do? If this matter was exposed, it would be equivalent to offending the Divine Cliff. Zhou Xuanji did not know that he had already attracted the attention of many people. Even if he knew, he would not care. In less than 3 days, he had robbed 78 ascenders, and the number of geocentric flame crystals he had obtained exceeded 1,000. He couldn't help but sigh. So geocentric crystals really were very common. He had originally thought that it was some kind of gem or heavenly treasure used to forge magic tools. As it turned out, he was thinking too much. He continued to dive. According to his estimation, this place was already about 30,000 meters underground. It was starting to become difficult to find an ascender. Most of them had already been eliminated, and the rest were hiding. Zhou Xuanji came to a sudden stop after going around the winding tunnels. There was a figure standing on a boulder in front of him. 3 corpses were lying on the edge of the boulder, and they had all died horribly. Zhou Xuanji looked over. That person was dressed in exquisite red clothes. His figure was tall and straight, and his black hair was messy. In the dim underground space, he looked like a demon. He grabbed a ball of flesh and put it to his mouth. He began chewing on it, which disgusted Zhou Xuanji. A 5th revolution golden immortal. His aura is very strong. He's almost at the 7th revolution golden immortal level. Kid, sign up. The man in red laughed cruelly. His hoarse voice made one's scalp numb. Divine Cliff, Ji Xian, Zhou Xuanji replied. This person gave him a sense of danger, extreme danger. It seemed that he was not someone to be trifled with. Could he be a Moyuha? Or the descendant of the demonic emperor bloodline? Ji Xian? I've heard of you. My name is Guma Yuan. You should have heard of me too. The man in red laughed coldly. After that, he leaped down and flung away the flesh in his hand. After that, he wiped the flesh on his body, which was extremely disgusting. Guma Yuan, the descendant of the demonic emperor bloodline. In the Great Thousand World, there was more than one descendant of the demonic emperor bloodline. They all inherited the demonic emperor bloodline perfectly and were highly sought after by the evil sections. Zhou Xuanji squinted his eyes and mumbled, I've heard of you indeed. He carried the ghost emperor extreme abyss and walked forward. 9 sword souls appeared behind him. Above the clouds, Sage Yutian clenched his fists and squinted his eyes. It's him indeed, he mumbled. He turned to look at Emissary Li Qing, who was far away. Emissary Li Qing was staring at him with a faint smile. The threatening look in his eyes made Zhou Xuanji break out in cold sweat. Gu Moyun sized up the 9 sword souls and said with interest, sword souls. Interesting. He flipped his right hand, and a blood-colored long saber appeared in his hand. Boom! The 2 of them clashed into each other instantly and began an intense battle in this narrow space. Both of them wanted to be the champion, so they were not afraid to fight. Sword lights flashed, and numerous sword souls shot out. Gu Moyun swung his blood-colored saber and blocked them all. His expression was cold, but he was shocked in his heart. Such power! This guy is not simple indeed. As a 9th revolution golden immortal, he was not afraid of Zhou Xuanji. He immediately used his full power to suppress Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji activated 10,000 ultimate steps and charged to Gu Moyun's back. He slashed at Gu Moyun and was about to decapitate him. Gu Moyun's shoulders jerked, and a blood mist exploded behind him, forcing Zhou Xuanji back. The blood mist landed on Zhou Xuanji's body and turned into strands of smoke. Corrosive power. Zhou Xuanji quickly dodged and swung his sword with his right hand. His sword chi ravaged Gu Moyun relentlessly. Outside, seeing that Zhou Xuanji and Gu Moyun were evenly matched, countless people were in an uproar. Ji Xian from the Divine Cliff is so powerful. A 5th revolution golden immortal fighting against a 9th revolution golden immortal? He can use 9 sword souls at the same time. He's not simple. He's a genius in the sword's way. Where did the Divine Cliff find such a genius? The Divine Cliff, indeed. There are countless geniuses. The people from various sects exclaimed in amazement. Only the people from the Buddha Ghost sect and Sage Yutian looked terrible. Gu Moyun came from the Buddha Ghost sect, and the people from the sect felt embarrassed. After all, Gu Moyun's cultivation was 4 revolutions higher than Zhou Xuanji's. Sage Yutian's heart shuddered. Zhou Xuanji's rate of growth was too horrifying. He could dominate the heavenly revolution golden immortal stage right after he ascended. 100 years later, wouldn't he become a void extreme immortal? 10,000 years later, would he become a true god? They were both true gods, but he was not confident that he could defeat Zhou Xuanji. His eyes turned grim as he began to think of a countermeasure. Ha ha ha. Awesome. Gumayuan laughed wildly. His face turned greedy and arrogant. Zhou Xuanji's prowess did not enrage him, but made him even more excited. He immediately split into hundreds of duplicates and slashed at Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji transformed into a legendary sword with a shake of his body. He charged forward with the Ghost Emperor Extreme Abyss, destroying the duplicates one after another and charging toward Gumayuan. Boom! 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 The underground space began to collapse. Rocks smashed into the two like they were made of paper. They were fearless and only had eyes for each other. His flesh must be delicious, Gumayuan thought. Chapter 430. Gumayuan lived up to his name as the descendant of the demonic emperor bloodline. His talent for battle was just as powerful. Even with the god-slaying legendary sword, Zhou Xuanji could only barely fight him to a draw. However, Zhou Xuanji had yet to use the world's power. He was enlightened. It seemed like he could already sweep through the entire heavenly revolution golden immortal realm. Zhou Xuanji immediately used universal attraction and sucked Gumayuan before him. Gumayuan was shocked and slashed with his saber instinctively. Saber chi swept out and landed on Zhou Xuanji's body, but it was rebounded by world reincarnation. Bang! Gumayuan was sent flying by his own saber chi. He smashed through the underground rocks and flew 1,000 meters. Zhou Xuanji followed up with another attack. He activated the primordial chaos sword shadow, and countless sword shadows transformed into a primordial river that surged forward. He walked on the waves, holding the Ghost Emperor Extreme Abyss in his hand. He laughed in disdain. Descendant of the demonic emperor bloodline? That's all there is to it. The world fool sword appeared in his left hand. When Gumayuan heard this, a nefarious fire ignited in his heart. Murderous intent burst forth from his eyes as he raised his blade and charged forward. Zhou Xuanji had already activated the world's power and was fearless. Gumayuan collided head-on with the primordial sword river and was sent flying. What's going on? His eyes widened in shock. How did Zhou Xuanji's magic energy suddenly become so powerful? He could not understand, and Zhou Xuanji did not give him time to think either. He unleashed all sorts of sword techniques at him, dazzling and domineering. Outside, all of the spectators were attracted by Zhou Xuanji's sword technique. This kid is proficient in so many sword techniques. Are you serious? Gumayuan is being suppressed. He's too strong. Could it be that his mana is inexhaustible? With so many sword techniques, squandering magic power, if it were me, I might have already run out of energy. Is he really a 5th revolution golden immortal? Did you use some sort of concealment technique to hide your cultivation? Everyone was stunned. Sage Yutian's face fell, and he sighed inwardly. He still hadn't displayed his greatest ability. Emissary Li Qing's face was already blooming with smiles. He suddenly felt that asking Han Shuzi to take Zhou Xuanji in was a wise decision. Such a genius should not be obliterated. Zhou Xuanji crushed Gumayuan. His eyes were fixed on him in case he took out his identity medallion and admitted defeat at any time. Damn it, Gumayuan gnashed his teeth. He was so angry that his eyes were bloodshot. At this moment, he could no longer be excited. For some reason, he felt that Zhou Xuanji was very annoying and despicable. He did not think about why Zhou Xuanji was so powerful and only wanted to torture this guy to death. The sword souls behind Zhou Xuanji slashed toward Gumayuan. Under the impact of the primordial sword river, it was very difficult for Gumayuan to block the attack of the sword soul. In the blink of an eye, he was covered in wounds. The two of them moved quickly. The primordial sword river was unstoppable. Along the way, they met many ascenders. Those ascenders were so frightened that they fled in panic. Was that Guma Yuan? They had the same question in their minds. Since the start of the Ascender exam, Guma Yuan had already become an existence akin to a great demon king in the eyes of the Ascenders. Other than Mo Yuha, everyone else was terror-stricken upon hearing his name. Mo Yuha and Guma Yuan had met more than once, but the two of them always brushed past each other with tacit understanding. They wanted to fight it out at the end. The dignity of the Paragon Demon sect and the Buddha Ghost sect made them view each other as people they must kill. Guma Yuan, you're no match for me. Hand over the geocentric flame crystals on you, and I will spare your life. Zhou Xuanji looked down at Guma Yuan and cried out coldly. With the World Fool sword in his hand, Zhou Xuanji's words almost made Guma Yuan explode in anger. Who do you think you are? Guma Yuan roared furiously. Strands of blood qi emanated from his body and covered his body, forming into a muscular demonic shadow. The demonic shadow clenched its fist and punched furiously. Boom! The primordial sword river was blasted apart by the demonic shadow's fist. The gust from the fist sent Zhou Xuanji flying backward. He quickly stepped on the cave wall and looked up. The demonic shadow was 15 meters tall and quickly materialized. It seemed to be wearing a layer of armor, and its face could not be seen clearly. It gave off an evil aura that made Zhou Xuanji's heart shudder. What is that? Zhou Xuanji thought in astonishment. He could sense that Guma Yuan's aura was growing more dangerous. With the demonic shadow behind him, Guma Yuan charged toward Zhou Xuanji with ghostly speed. Zhou Xuanji blocked with his sword instinctively. With a loud clang, he was sent flying backward. His golden, invincible body shattered the rocks and soil. Before he could react, Guma Yuan stomped on his abdomen. The horrifying force twisted his face. Dog! He roared furiously in his heart, and used sword chi soar straightaway to force Guma Yuan back. Guma Yuan turned into a ferocious beast and dashed along the cave wall. His eyes were beaming with a terrifying red radiance. Zhou Xuanji immediately activated the Emperor's Wei Thousand-Hand Sword Buddha. With his head on the top of the cave, Zhou Xuanji rose from the ground and quickly reached a height of 300 meters. Zhou Xuanji entered the Thousand-Hand Sword Buddha's body, and Guma Yuan crashed into him like he was ramming into a golden bell. With a loud clang, he was sent flying backward. The Thousand-Hand Sword Buddha stretched out 1,000 hands and slashed wildly at Guma Yuan. In an instant, the demonic shadow was almost shattered. In the outside world, everyone from the Heavenly Hall recognized Zhou Xuanji. They gnashed their teeth and began cursing furiously. Their words were heard by the others, which caused a huge commotion. Zhou Xuanji, he's that first-class great emperor? The Heavenly Hall is bullsh ting. Zhou Xuanji has not ascended yet. It's him, the Thousand-Hand Sword Buddha. That's his signature divine ability. Really? The divine cliff is so powerful. Tsk. I don't understand why the divine cliff would allow him to become a first-class great emperor directly. The spectators discussed among themselves in shock. Other than the Heavenly Hall and the Buddha Ghost sect, the other factions did not harbor much enmity toward Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji was indeed from the northern wilderness, but he had already become a great emperor and cut off his connection with the demonic emperor. Naturally, he was not an evil demon. His opponent was the real evil demon. However, Zhou Xuanji's talent was too powerful, which made people's imaginations run wild. Li Zhang came to a realization. So his senior apprentice brother was talking about this brat. He had heard about Zhou Xuanji before. He was not even 100 years old, but his talent was outrageous. He disappeared immediately. On the other side, Zhou Xuanji felt extremely comfortable. The Emperor's Wei Thousand-Hand Sword Buddha was still the most comfortable. He was not afraid that his identity would be exposed. Even Han Shuzi was not afraid. So why should he be afraid? Even if the sky fell, the divine cliff would hold it up. Guma Yuan could not retaliate at all. His body sank into the pile of rubble. He was extremely furious and roared, "Ji Xian, kill me if you have the guts, or I will make you beg for death." He was the descendant of the demonic emperor bloodline and had a high position in the Buddha ghost sect. Yet, he was suppressed by a third-class great emperor. This was a great humiliation. I cannot tolerate this. Zhou Xuanji laughed coldly. Hand over the earth core crystal. Do you really want to die? As he spoke, he began to use world internalization. Each slash absorbed Gu Moyuan's magic energy, which woke him up immediately as though his furious heart was splashed with cold water. He's absorbing my magic energy. Okay, I'll hand it over. Gu Moyuan cried out reluctantly, and Zhou Xuanji stopped immediately. Just when he stopped, Gu Moyuan dashed up and was about to escape. How could Zhou Xuanji let him escape? He immediately used universal attraction and sucked Gu Moyuan over. The thousand-hand sword Buddha slashed wildly again and smashed him into the ground. Aggrieved, I want to cry. This was how Gu Moyuan felt. Chapter 4:31. No matter how hard Gu Moyuan struggled, he was unable to resist. The thousand-hand sword Buddha's attack was so fierce that he almost couldn't catch his breath. He could already foresee how the spectators in the sky would talk about him. He wished he could commit suicide on the spot, but he really couldn't accept it. He didn't want to die. He was the descendant of the demonic emperor bloodline, and he still had much to show. He gritted his teeth and said, I'll pay. I'll pay. Zhou Xuanji's sword technique was exquisite, and his divine ability was quite strange. It was the first time he had encountered such an enemy. Damn it, he would definitely take revenge in the future. Zhou Xuanji stopped and laughed coldly. Still not going to hand it over? Gu Moyuan immediately threw out earth core crystals, and Zhou Xuanji received them one by one. A half-bridge made of geocentric flame crystals appeared between the two. Geocentric crystals came one after another, and Zhou Xuanji's expression changed slightly. How many people did this kid rob? Within the demonic shadow, Gu Moyuan's expression was incomparably ugly. These were his painstaking efforts. After a while, Gu Moyuan no longer threw out more earth core crystals. He threw Zhou Xuanji a total of 2,231 earth core crystals. Zhou Xuanji took out the true sword and stabbed it into his body. Anything else? Yes. Gu Moyuan's eyes widened in shock. Therefore, he threw out another 3,000 geocentric flame crystals. Zhou Xuanji was speechless. This guy was really rich. He continued to interrogate her. Gu Moyuan threw out another 1,000 geocentric crystals. After another round of interrogation, he tossed out another 2,000 geocentric crystals. Gu Moyuan was about to cry. Why couldn't he restrain himself from telling the truth? He looked at the truth sword with fear in his eyes. The outside world was in an uproar. A sword that could force people to tell the truth? Even someone as strong as Gu Moyuan couldn't resist? Finally, Zhou Xuanji obtained more than 13,600 earth core crystals from Gu Moyuan. He only let go after making sure that Gu Moyuan did not have any left. Gu Moyuan stood up with a complicated expression. His eyes were filled with anger and resentment. Zhou Xuanji could not bear to see this and comforted him. Don't blame yourself. It's mainly because I'm too powerful. You're not my match. Puff! Gu Moyuan couldn't bear this injustice. He spat out a mouthful of blood, which splattered all over the rubble. Zhou Xuanji smiled and waved his hand before leaving. Gu Moyuan sat paralyzed on the ground. The magic power in his body had already been exhausted. He was trying his best to calm himself down. As Zhou Xuanji left, he began to regain his rationality. Ji Xian of the Divine Cliff. If I don't take revenge for this, I'm not human. He gritted his teeth. He could not bear the thought of countless people mocking him in the outside world. Fortunately, he still had a chance. That bitch was stupid. She actually let him go. Just you wait. The winner of this Ascender assessment will be me. He clenched his fists and said firmly. On the other side, Zhou Xuanji continued to descend. After torturing Gu Moyuan, he was in a good mood. He finally had a clear understanding of his own strength. It should not be a problem for him to sweep across all golden immortals. Mo Yuha was definitely stronger, but if he used all his trump cards, it was not impossible for him to win. He hummed a tune as he flew quickly. Another 5 days passed in the blink of an eye. Zhou Xuanji's earth core crystals exceeded 20,000. There were only a few freaks like Guma Yuan. However, he had yet to meet Mo Yue, so he wasn't sure if he had the most geocentric flame crystals. Until today, the number of ascenders had decreased drastically. It was difficult for Zhou Xuanji to encounter any more ascenders. He scanned with his divine sense and realized that his divine sense could only reach 1,000 meters away. It seemed like the mysterious tribulation crater was not as simple as it seemed. There was something blocking divine sense. Zhou Xuanji stopped and looked down. He saw a vast ocean of lava below him. The fiery light shone on the cave walls, which was extremely majestic. A scorching aura wafted toward him. If an ordinary person were to get close, they would be turned into ashes. Countless bubbles rose and fell on the magma ocean, bursting from time to time. Zhou Xuanji looked around and saw countless geocentric flame crystals floating on the ocean. However, with his cultivation, he did not dare to get close. Far away, someone was flying swiftly and continuously, plucking geocentric flame crystals from the surface of the lava ocean. Zhou Xuanji stared at him and sized him up. This person wore a dark purple robe and a jade crown. 2 strands of white hair fell down his cheeks, and his handsome face was covered in sweat. Powerful cultivation. Zhou Xuanji could not see through him, but felt that this person was more powerful than Guma Yuan. There was only one possibility. Mo Yue. Zhou Xuanji squinted his eyes and thought about whether he should attack Mo Yue. He was not afraid of Mo Yue, but only wanted to maximize his benefits. Forget it. Let him collect for a while. Zhou Xuanji lay down on the ground and began to rest while absorbing the spiritual qi underground. Time ticked by. There were more than 10 cultivators who ascended above the lava ocean. They were 10,000 meters apart from each other and did not disturb each other. They were all thinking of ways to pluck geocentric flame crystals. Only Zhou Xuanji did not move. Even so, most people's attention was focused on him. A first-class great emperor was too much of a gimmick. Even Mo Yue could not compete with him. That guy is trying to reap the benefits. He doesn't even take Mo Yue seriously. He's too arrogant. He's a first-class great emperor. Didn't you see that Guma Yuan was like a dog in his hands? Shoo, be careful not to be heard. If that's the case, he might be the final winner. No, I think he will die from his arrogance. Hearing the discussions of the others, sovereign demon sects Guan Hong and the Buddha Ghost sect's people were furious. Especially the Buddha Ghost sect, who wanted to tear Zhou Xuanji into pieces. Guma Yuan was defeated so miserably before him that they could not wait to leave. Guan Hong was worried about Mo Yue. He heard about Zhou Xuanji. The sovereign demon sect lord once said that it would be great if he could rope Zhou Xuanji in. This was enough to show how ridiculously talented Zhou Xuanji was. He did not want Mo Yue to lose. After all, he was assisting Mo Yue and hoped that Mo Yue could inherit the sect lord's position in the future. Emissary Li Qing was definitely the one who was in the most pleasant mood. When others came to strike up a conversation with him, his nostrils flared up. On the heavenly hall side, an old man flew to Sage Yutian's side and said telepathically, "Your Majesty, the news has been leaked." Sage Yutian nodded and mumbled, "This emperor does not want to attack you either. If this gets out, the heavenly hall will not get involved in this anymore." Although he did not like Zhou Xuanji, he hated how those powerful cultivators oppressed the heavenly hall and used it as a tool. Now that Zhou Xuanji had ascended and disappeared in the northern wilderness region, it was the best time for the heavenly hall to retreat. He began to look forward to it suddenly. Facing the encirclement of so many powerful cultivators, what would the divine cliff do? In the Taoist temple at the top of the sky, Li Zhangxi came up to Taichu Yudao again and said respectfully, "Senior apprentice brother, the heavenly hall really spread the news about Zhou Xuanji. Next, the Tao Heaven sect will become the center of the storm." He was filled with disdain toward the heavenly hall. Since ancient times, many geniuses were born in the northern wilderness region. but it was a pity that the heavenly hall could not keep them. The biggest reason was that Seiju Tian was not powerful enough. He could never reach the peak. With his back facing Li Zhangqi, Taichu Yudao smiled and said, "It's okay. Let them come." Chapter 432. Zhou Xuanji did not know that his identity had been exposed, and a large number of enemies were on their way. He lay on the stone pillar, quietly waiting for time to pass. In the blink of an eye, there were only 5 days left until the end of the Ascender assessment. Zhou Xuanji had already made a name for himself in the mysterious tribulation crater. After all, he did not kill anyone but only robbed other Ascenders. The news of him robbing Gumayan spread like wildfire, causing him to stand shoulder to shoulder with Mo Yuha. All the Ascenders were looking forward to the battle between him and Mo Yuha. It would be best if the two strongest experts perished together. However, Zhou Xuanji and Demon Desire River minded their own business and did not attack each other. This was especially so for Zhou Xuanji, who just lay there without moving. The Ascenders all understood his intentions. This bastard wanted to rob the other Ascenders of their geocentric crystals. Wu Mingyi and a group of Divine Cliff disciples gathered near Zhou Xuanji. Today, the Divine Cliff only had 9 people left. They could only rely on Zhou Xuanji's might to survive. Zhou Xuanji had long since noticed their approach, but he did not mind. Guma Yuan did not attack the other Ascenders. He was also frantically plundering the geocentric flame crystals. The magma sea was incomparably silent, and the atmosphere was heavy. Everyone was vigilant of their surroundings. If he was careless and was shot down, he would die without a burial. There were already some pitiful creatures who fell down before, and not even a trace of their soul was left. On the 4th last day, Guma Yuan could no longer sit still, and he began to slaughter the Ascenders. Who wouldn't want to fight a little longer if they could survive until today? As a result, many Ascenders died tragically because they didn't even have the time to take out their identity tokens. On the 3rd last day, there were less than 200 Ascenders left in the profound tribulation crater. Most of them were hiding underground, not daring to approach the magma ocean. In the outside world, many of the eliminated Ascenders returned to their respective sects dejectedly. Although they wanted to leave, they had no choice but to give the Tao Heaven sect face. They gritted their teeth and continued to watch. At the same time, they also wanted to know who would win. On this day, Mo Yuha also began to attack the other Ascendants. He and Guma Yuan turned into cruel hunters and chased after the Ascenders. Zhou Xuanji was already motionless. He did not go down to plunder the Earth Core crystal, but just laid there as though he was sleeping. Even though there was no one on the surface of the magma sea, he did not move. Everyone knew what he was trying to do. The more he thought so, the more he looked forward to it. Was a Grade 1 Great Emperor really that powerful? A mere 5th Revolution Golden Immortal could be invincible among Heavenly Revolution Golden Immortals? The 2nd last day, Mo Yuha returned to the surface of the lava and stopped on a stone pillar. From here, he could see Zhou Xuanji. The two of them were less than a kilometer apart. This distance was already very close for them. The corners of Mo Yuha's mouth curled upwards, revealing a disdainful smile as he sat down cross-legged. He did not know Zhou Xuanji's true identity, but he knew that this person had defeated Guma Yuan, so he was not in a hurry to act. Because he didn't even put Guma Yuan in his eyes. Zhou Xuanji sent a telepathic message to Wu Mingyi and the others, advising them to stay far away. It would be best if they could crush their identity medallions now. Apart from these people, the other Ascenders were all 7th Revolution Golden Immortals and above. Zhou Xuanji was very curious. It had only been 500 years since they ascended, so how did they reach such a stage? One thing was very clear, these Ascenders were all from the major forces. With Zhou Xuanji's reminder, the other Divine Cliff disciples decided to retreat as a group. They flew close to the ground and waited for the exam to end. However, they had forgotten that Guma Yuan was still up there. On the magma sea, only Zhou Xuanji and Mo Yuha were left. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes and asked, Hey, how many Earth core crystals do you have? I have 20,000. Mo Yuha glanced at him and said indifferently, just a little more than 1,000,000. A little more than 1,000,000. Zhou Xuanji smiled. What a fat sheep. Seeing his smile, the outside world was in an uproar. This first-class great emperor was really arrogant. How powerful was he to be so unbridled? Guan Hong frowned tightly. The more she looked at Zhou Xuanji, the more displeased she was. Sage Yu Tian was silent, but his eyes were filled with complicated emotions. If Zhou Xuanji could be used by the Heavenly Hall, perhaps the Heavenly Hall could soar. Li Zhangqi stood beside emissary Li Qing and chatted cheerfully with him about Zhou Xuanji. The other forces cursed in their hearts. What right did this guy have to become an elder of the Dao Heaven sect? He was too shameless. When Zhou Xuanji gets first place and becomes a 10th Revolution Golden Immortal 10 years later, you will have one more Void Extreme Immortal. How enviable! Li Zhangqi chuckled as though he was a good brother to emissary Li Qing. Han Shuzi sent emissary Li Qing to lead Zhou Xuanji, which meant that the two of them had a good relationship. Li Zhangqi naturally wanted to rope emissary Li Qing in. Emissary Li Qing shook his head and smiled humbly. But he enjoyed it in his heart. Continue to brag. Don't stop. Time continued to pass. The last day, Zhou Xuanji stood up slowly, and everyone on the clouds quieted down. The final battle was finally here. Zhou Xuanji and Mo Yuha were definitely the most powerful two in this year's Ascender examination. The Ghost Emperor Extreme Abyss and the 9-flame Chimera Demon Sword appeared in Zhou Xuanji's hands. Numerous legendary swords appeared around him one after another. Activating their divine energy, the swords shone brilliantly. The surface of his body quickly turned golden and was surrounded by heavenly lightning. A purple Tai Chi diagram with 9 swords appeared on his forehead. Boom! The surrounding cavern walls shook violently, and even a lava lake rippled. Mo Yuha opened his eyes in surprise. He knew that Zhou Xuanji was powerful, but he did not expect his aura to be so powerful. Was this guy really a 5th Revolution Golden Immortal? He got up and unleashed his own aura. The two completely different auras clashed, and the impact caused the inverted stone spikes to fall down. Zhou Xuanji smiled lightly and said, "If I defeat you, I will have more than 1,000,000 pieces. Easy." And Mo Yuha raised his right hand, and a blood-red halberd appeared in his hand. A layer of black armor covered his robe, and his aura grew tremendously like a demon god. "Easy? I will let you die." And Mo Yuha stared at Zhou Xuanji and said with a smile. His smile was filled with murderous intent. Their eyes met, and both of them looked equally conceited. Boom! The two attacked almost at the same time, and the stone pillar under their feet crumbled instantly. Clang! The sword and halberd clashed. Zhou Xuanji swung both swords at the same time with extreme speed. Mo Yuha held the halberd with both hands, and his speed was just as fast as Zhou Xuanji's. Numerous legendary swords flew toward Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji activated the 10,000 Sword Dragon incantation straightaway and controlled hundreds of legendary swords to attack Mo Yuha. He then activated the Emperor's Way, 1,000-hand sword Buddha, and gathered the power of the heavens and earth. A golden Buddha that was hundreds of meters tall appeared quickly, and he entered it. Mo Yuha frowned. He could sense that Zhou Xuanji's magic energy and strength had grown tremendously. He did not panic. A wave of demonic qi exploded from his body and turned into countless tentacles to defend against the legendary swords around him. His eyes turned red. He held the halberd with both hands and thrust it forward with all his might. The demonic qi transformed into a black dragon and wrapped around the halberd. The dragon clashed with the 1,000-hand sword Buddha and pushed it back. Chapter 433. The 1,000-hand sword Buddha spread its 1,000 arms, each holding a sword, and slashed at Mo Yuha. More than 100 divine swords surrounded Mo Yuha with dragon-shaped sword chi. At first glance, it seemed like an army was surrounding Mo Yuha. their auras powerful and tyrannical. Although Mo Yuha was being suppressed, he still had the strength to defend. Compared to Guma Yuan, Mo Yuha was more than 10 times stronger. Zhou Xuanji tightly frowned. If he observed closely, he would find that the thousand-hand sword Buddha was showing signs of collapsing. This fellow's demonic aura is so strong. At this rate, the thousand-hand sword Buddha would explode before he could harm Mo Yuha. He cursed in his heart. Was this guy wearing a reverse armor? He immediately dispelled the Emperor's Way thousand-hand sword Buddha. Following that, he unleashed the ancestral dragon divine sword and turned it into a five-clawed golden dragon. An earth-shaking explosion resounded. The unstoppable five-clawed golden dragon swallowed Mo Yuha in one gulp and rushed along the surface of a lava, setting off 2 waves of scorching heat. Mo Yuha gritted his teeth in the mouth of the five-clawed golden dragon. He looked around in surprise and found that the five-clawed golden dragon was formed from sword chi. What a mighty sword technique! At this moment, a sword light shot out from the five-clawed golden dragon's body. It was Zhou Xuanji. His understanding of the ancestral dragon sword had reached its peak. While stabilizing the ancestral dragon, he could launch another attack on the enemy. The 9 sword souls appeared behind him, and he quickly rushed to Mo Yuha's side. His 2 swords danced in unison, and the sword souls attacked one after another. Mo Yuha was proficient in some kind of powerful halberd technique, which was extremely domineering. He blocked all of Zhou Xuanji's attacks. Although he looked calm, he was complaining in his heart. The web between his thumb and forefinger had already been torn, and it was extremely painful. Most importantly, he was using some kind of secret technique that allowed him to maintain his strongest state, which would speed up the consumption of magic power. Even so, he could only fight Zhou Xuanji to a draw. He couldn't understand. How could a 5th Revolution Golden Immortal have such strength? They did not know that Zhou Xuanji had 2 god-slaying legendary swords in his hands, and he had the power of the heavens and the earth as well as the Tianxia map, with all sorts of great serendipity gathered on him. How could he not be powerful? The five-clawed golden dragon broke through the cave wall and wreaked havoc underground. The outside world was already in an uproar. Zhou Xuanji can really fight evenly with Mo Yuha. What sword technique is that? He's too strong. If he were to become a real god, how powerful would he be? Mo Yuha has the potential to become the next sect master of the Sovereign Devil sect. Why do I feel that he has become mediocre? It's not that his talent is mediocre. It's that Zhou Xuanji is too powerful. The Divine Cliff has picked up a treasure. The various factions were all discussing this, and even the Tao Heaven Sect's disciples were gasping in shock. Especially the female disciples. Their eyes were shining like stars. Zhou Xuanji was handsome and had extraordinary talent. Which woman could resist his charm? Emissary Li Qing smiled and sighed in his heart. A first-class great emperor was indeed extremely powerful. No wonder Zhou Xuanji was ranked 12th on the Great Emperor Steel. The top 20 were all indomitable geniuses. The Tao Heaven Sect's sect master, Taichu Yudao, was only ranked 18th. Even when he was 18, he had once been the strongest in the Center God province. It was hard to imagine what heights Zhou Xuanji would reach in the future. In the Taoist temple, Taichu Yudao sat on a cattail hassock and looked at the sky outside. He stroked his long beard and smiled like a kind grandpa, without the aura of a powerful cultivator. He laughed softly and said, "The world Buddha art and Tianxia map are indeed worthy. No wonder Divine Lord Ji wanted them so much." His eyes were immersed in reminiscence as he mumbled, "Little brother, you are indeed talented to create such a creation. You should not die, and I will not let the tragedy of your past happen again." Zhou Xuanji and Mo Yua's battle was reflected in his eyes, and they looked so tiny. Boom, boom, boom. The five-clawed golden dragon dashed underground while Zhou Xuanji and Mo Yuha fought intensely inside the dragon's body. Mo Yuha realized that his magic energy was being sucked away by his opponent. No, I must leave this place. Mo Yuha gritted his teeth. With a sway of his body, he disappeared and came to the head of the five-clawed golden dragon. He raised his halberd and smashed it down. Bomb! The 1,000-meters-long, five-clawed golden dragon exploded immediately and turned into countless sparks. Sword lights flashed, and two sword souls shot toward Mo Yuha. Mo Yuha blocked instinctively, but his face was still cut open. Blood spurted out, and his jade crown fell off. His white hair was disheveled. His eyes turned cold and sharp, and a murderous intent burst forth from him. Zhou Xuanji had really angered him. He raised his halberd high, and demonic qi gathered above his head like a sea of clouds. As the halberd swung down, countless vengeful demons charged out from the demonic sea of clouds and charged toward Zhou Xuanji with unstoppable force. Zhou Xuanji smiled with disdain. He raised the Ghost Emperor Extreme Abyss and summoned it. With the Extreme Abyss summoned, countless evil spirits charged out and clashed with Mo Yuha's vengeful demon army. Boom! The underground mountain wall far away shattered suddenly, and Gumo Yuan charged over with his saber. A maniacal smile appeared on his face as he targeted Zhou Xuanji first. He was extremely fast. Like a ray of blood-red light, he could not be seen with the naked eye. Zhou Xuanji slashed back. Sky-dominating divine, sword soul. Gumo Yuan could only sense an unstoppable force crashing toward him. His body was almost crushed into pieces. Next, he flew backward while vomiting blood and disappeared into the billowing dust. Zhou Xuanji controlled the 26 legendary swords in his mind and got into formation. Hades' god-slaying formation. He could not defeat Mo Yuha, so he could only look for other helpers. Before he came, he had asked Emissary Li Qing. Such a summoning formation could be used. As long as the formation was set up by one's own power and not with the help of a formation scroll prepared beforehand, it was not against the rules. He charged toward Mo Yuha again. Mo Yuha noticed the Hades god-slaying formation. He wanted to stop Zhou Xuanji, but Zhou Xuanji was too difficult to deal with. He was shocked in his heart. How does this guy control his swords? Don't tell me those swords have sword spirits. No, there's no aura of spirit. He's controlling them. Multitasking? Far more than that. Zhou Xuanji did not know how shocked Mo Yuha was, because Mo Yuha had always been at ease, which made Zhou Xuanji feel that Mo Yuha's magic energy was boundless and difficult to defeat. Roar. A horrifying roar came from the Hades god-slaying formation. From the black hole, numerous black tails emerged and danced wildly. A horrifying aura descended and filled the broken underground space. Mo Yuha looked over with a frown. Fear could be seen in his eyes. Zhou Xuanji was pleasantly surprised in his heart. When he used the Hades god-slaying formation, he failed many times, which almost made him lose confidence in the formation. This aura, it's very powerful. It was too late to stop the Hades god-slaying formation now. However, Gumo Yuan charged at him again. His hair was disheveled, and he was extremely furious. He slashed at the Hades god-slaying formation with his saber. Ji Xian, if I can't win, don't even think about winning. The saber chi swept across like a blood moon, majestic and domineering. The black tails in the black hole disappeared suddenly. A black beam of light shot out and dispersed the blood moon saber chi before dashing toward Gumo Yuan. Gumo Yuan could not dodge in time and was struck by the black beam. Chapter 434. Gumo Yuan raised his head and screamed miserably. His body trembled as a layer of black light enveloped his body. Zhou Xuanji and Mo Yuha stopped at the same time and looked at him with astonishment. Even Zhou Xuanji did not expect this to happen. Under their gazes, Gumo Yuan quickly demonized. Demonic qi engulfed him, and he turned into a devil with 18 black tails. His eyes shone with a bloody light, and it was impossible to distinguish his true appearance. They could only see his silhouette, and he even let out a low roar. Immediately after, Gumayuan directly attacked Mo Yuha. Mo Yuha's eyes widened. Zhou Xuanji, on the other hand, was pleasantly surprised. It seemed that this demon was not as simple as it seemed. It could possess a body to fight. He immediately followed, joining forces with Gumayuan to fight Mo Yuha. After being possessed by the demon, Gumayuan's power increased by several folds. He was not any weaker than Zhou Xuanji and Mo Yuha. How could Mo Yuha block it? He was instantly at a disadvantage. Zhou Xuanji switched between different sword techniques, which were incredibly profound. Gumayuan, on the other hand, used brute force to beat Mo Yuha until his hand were numb. This scene shocked everyone in the outside world. What's that? Is this cheating? Use the power of evil and unorthodox Daos. Others set up their own formation. Can you? The son of the demonic emperor bloodline is so pathetic. I feel like he's just a clown before Zhou Xuanji and the demon Desire River. Is there anything this guy doesn't know? Mo Yuha is finished. Hearing the discussions in the surroundings, the sovereign demon Sex Guan Hong clenched her fists, her expression extremely gloomy. He wished he could kill everyone around him. Unfortunately, he did not have such a powerful ability. If this continued, Mo Yuha would definitely lose. The Buddha ghost Sex anger was no less than his. In fact, it was even greater. After all, Mo Yuha was fighting 1 against 2. Even if he lost, it wouldn't be shameful. But Gumayuan, they cursed at Zhou Xuanji's shamelessness in their hearts. Bang! Gumayuan stomped on Mo Yuha, breaking his sternum. Fresh blood spurted from his mouth as his body smashed through layers of rocks, rushing towards the ground. Zhou Xuanji followed up with another attack, beating the dog while it was down. In less than 3 breaths of time, Mo Yuha's halberd left his hand. His face contorted and he almost fainted. Facing Zhou Xuanji and Gumayuan's barrage of attacks, he could not withstand it at all. Too strong. His heart was filled with unprecedented grievance and unwillingness. At this moment, he finally understood what Gumayuan had felt before. The sword light flashed. The lickable sword, the soft velvety sword, the dumb sword, the world fool sword, the great compassion sword, and the true sword pierced into his chest one after another. The combination of various special abilities became the straw that broke the camel's back, causing Mo Yuha to completely lose the ability to fight. Zhou Xuanji used universal attraction and sucked him in front of him. The ghost Emperor Extreme Abyss was pressed against his throat. You lost, Zhou Xuanji said calmly, living up to his initial arrogance. He was as calm as if he had defeated a passerby. Mo Yuha struggled to open his eyes. He gritted his teeth and said, "Kill me." After being defeated to such an extent, he no longer had the face to continue living. Zhou Xuanji said, "Hand over the earth core crystal. There's no need to seek death. There's still a long way to go. Moreover, if you die like this, will you be able to face the sovereign demon sect behind you? Life is long. It's impossible for everything to be smooth sailing and to be undefeated. A powerful cultivator is not invincible, but he will only be knocked down and not defeated. It's nothing if his body is defeated, but if his heart is defeated, then he is really dead." He said it casually, which made Mo Yuha fall into silence. The spectators outside were shocked by his words. If these words were said in another situation, it would only make people scoff. But given the current situation, Zhou Xuanji could have killed Mo Yuha to prevent himself from making enemies. But he did not. Even the sovereign demon Sex side was stunned. Li Zhanqi sighed in amazement. This guy has the spirit of a powerful cultivator and the demeanor of a grandmaster. Forgiving was harder than killing. Zhou Xuanji asked Gumayuan to take out his earth core crystals. There were a total of 2 million. He said with a smile, "See, not only you, but he also took out everything. A man must be able to let go. We will fight again in the future. You are really powerful. Of course, you are far inferior to me." Mo Yuha took a deep breath and handed over all his earth core crystals. Zhou Xuanji accepted them quickly. With more than 2 million earth core crystals, Zhou Xuanji was already the final winner. After that, Zhou Xuanji let go of Mo Yuha. This guy was already severely injured and could not recover within a day. As for Gumo Yuan, he would recover naturally after the demons retreated. Zhou Xuanji did not want to kill them. First, they had no enmity with each other. Second, killing them would only bring him endless trouble. He had a bolder idea, to make him a sword slave. At the thought of this, he said to Mo Yuha, "You don't have to blame yourself. I have the potential of a first-class great emperor. No one will look down on you even if you lose to me. Moreover, everyone outside saw the battle just now. They will only praise you." Since things had come to this, his identity must have been exposed. He decided to self-destruct. And Mo Yuha opened his eyes wide and cried out in shock. "First-class great emperor, you are Zhou Xuanji." Zhou Xuanji was definitely the most famous person in the past 100 years. Not only in the Center God province, but also in the other God provinces. No wonder, Mo Yuha felt better suddenly. He was only a second-class great emperor after all. He sighed and fell into silence. Zhou Xuanji flew to the side and waited for the examination to end. An hour later, the evil demons retreated, and Gumo Yuan woke up. He looked at Zhou Xuanji in fear and did not dare to find trouble with him anymore. He realized that his earth core crystals were no longer there, so he immediately turned around to collect them. And Mo Yuha gave up. To him, other than the first place, everything else was a loss. The second place was the one who failed the most. Until the next morning, the Ascender examination was over. All the Ascenders in the mysterious tribulation crater felt a mighty force wrap around them and teleported them out. Zhou Xuanji appeared, and the sky shook. Cheers sounded out. Zhou Xuanji is mighty, awesome, first-class great emperor. Too powerful. A first-class great emperor indeed. He completely crushed the entire field. Not only is he powerful and talented, but his spirit is also admirable. This person is worth learning from our disciples. Should we call him Zhou Xuanji or Ji Xian? The other Ascenders who survived until the end all turned to look at Zhou Xuanji in astonishment. He is Zhou Xuanji? The Divine Cliff's disciples were the most astonished, especially Wu Mingyi. His jaw almost dropped to the ground. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and sighed in his heart. Humph! Zhou Xuanji, you dare to protect the northern wilderness humans. Today, you will die in the mysterious tribulation crater. A cold snort came, covering all the cheers and silencing the heavens and earth. The sea of clouds in the east opened up, and a pair of gigantic eyes appeared behind it. This pair of gigantic eyes stared at Zhou Xuanji fixedly. Murderous intent filled the heavens and earth, which made everyone shiver. Emissary Li Qing came up to Zhou Xuanji instantly and cried out with a deep voice, "Who are you?" Zhou Xuanji is a core disciple of the Divine Cliff. How can you kill him just because you want to? Chapter 435. Whoosh, above the clouds. Everyone turned to look at the giant eye in the sky. This was the Tao Heaven sect, and Zhou Xuanji was the Divine Cliff's treasure. Who would dare to come here to kill him? Zhou Xuanji also looked over. It was not the first time he had seen such large eyes, but he still could not recognize them. To dare to rush here to kill him, it was definitely not due to jealousy. There should really be a grudge between them. But in Zhou Xuanji's eyes, apart from the Heavenly Hall and Xiao Hongjun, who else could he have enmity with? There was another possibility. That was Divine Lord Ji. However, Emissary Li Qing had once told him that Divine Lord Ji was extremely mysterious and never showed himself. The world only knew his name, but never saw him. Divine Cliff, this kid carries too much sin. If you really want to protect him, then you'll be making an enemy out of the Center God province. The pair of huge eyes stared at Emissary Li Qing and shouted in a deep voice. Hearing this, the various sects above the cloud sea were all amazed. Become enemies with the Center God province? Who the hell are you? Such arrogance. Zhou Xuanji and Emissary Li Qing were speechless. Was this person brainless? The surrounding ascenders all retreated far away from Zhou Xuanji. Bang! A bolt of lightning suddenly came from the horizon, intending to shatter Zhou Xuanji's soul. Emissary Li Qing quickly struck out with his palm, and a giant green palm appeared out of thin air. It was like a mountain that stood in front of the two of them, blocking Ji Lei. Lightning coiled around the giant green palm, causing cracks to appear all over the surface of the palm, and it instantly collapsed. Emissary Li Qing's expression changed drastically as the lightning was about to strike. A cool breeze blew past, blowing away the lightning. The huge eye on the horizon dissipated, and a towering black shadow suddenly appeared at the edge of the mysterious tribulation crater. There were also similar black shadows in other directions, and there were a total of 23 of them. They were like black pillars that supported the heavens and the earth, causing the people from various forces to be terrified. Who are they? What a strong aura. It's at least a real god, or even stronger. Zhou Xuanji made so many enemies. They are afraid that Zhou Xuanji will grow up. After all, this guy is a first-class great emperor. If he grows up, he will affect many things and benefits. Now, Zhou Xuanji is dead for sure. Even if Han Shuzi is here, he might not be able to protect him. 23 mysterious, powerful cultivators stood at the edge of the mysterious tribulation crater. Zhou Xuanji had no way to escape. He narrowed his eyes, anger rising in his heart. He had never provoked so many experts. An undeserved calamity. These people were definitely looking for an excuse to get rid of him. Don't let me find out that you're all dead, or I won't rest until you die. Zhou Xuanji's eyes were cold as he mumbled to himself. Emissary Li Qing didn't turn around when he heard his words. Instead, he was ready for battle. Even at this critical juncture, he did not retreat. Zhou Xuanji took out the two god-slaying legendary swords and prepared to fight. At this moment, an old voice sounded, sect leader of the Taichu sect. Are you going to protect him? The Taichu sect master, Dao Heaven sect master, Taichu Yu Dao. Everyone was shocked. The relationship between the Dao Heaven sect and the Divine Cliff was not close and could only be considered average. Could be to rope Zhou Xuanji in. Taichu Yu Dao's voice sounded out from the sky, his tone calm as he said, Zhou Xuanji received a true legacy from a little friend of mine, and he could be said to be related to me. I naturally have to protect him. The moment he said this, everyone in the sky above the mysterious tribulation crater exploded. Zhou Xuanji had such a relationship with the Dao Heaven sect's sect lord. Emissary Li Qing and Li Zhangqi were also stunned. Zhou Xuanji frowned. He had obtained little friend Taichu Yu Dao's legacy? Wouldn't that make me his little brother? No, I'm one level lower than him. Wait, whose legacy did I obtain? Sky-sundering Sword Emperor Wang Xiaofei? Hegemon Sword Emperor? Impossible. These two people could not become sworn brothers with Taichu Yu Dao. He suddenly thought of the World Buddha art and Tinsha map. This art and treasure could transcend the mortal realm. Even in the Great Thousand World, they were still powerful. From the beginning to the end, he did not know who created the World Buddha art. It was said that the World Buddha art had more than 3 levels. The more he thought about it, the more he frowned. Little friend? What a joke. Taichu Yu Dao, do you really want to become enemies with the entire Center God province? Another voice sounded out, filled with murderous intent. They did not act because they were wary of Taichu Yu Dao. Taichu Yu Dao's voice sounded out again. In 10 breaths, if you do not retreat, then stay here forever. Domineering. No wonder he was once the most powerful cultivator in the Center God province. Perhaps he might be the most powerful too. Everyone was subdued by his boldness. The 23 black figures fell into silence. Taichu Yu Dao's domineering attitude caught them off guard, and they hesitated. Soon, they disappeared one after another. The first voice sounded out again. Taichu Yu Dao, you can protect him now, but you can't protect him forever. Your Dao Heaven sect might perish soon. Taichu Yu Dao did not reply, and the other sects did not take it seriously either. Who would not say something harsh? They were more concerned about the relationship between Taichu Yu Dao and Zhou Xuanji. Would the Tao Heaven sect ally with the Divine Cliff because of this? If these two factions worked together, they could sweep across the Center God province. The sovereign demon sect's Guanhong fell into deep thought with a dark expression. The Buddha Ghost sect's people were also whispering among themselves. Emissary Li Qing heaved a sigh of relief. He turned around and asked Zhou Xuanji in astonishment, "You have such a relationship with the Tao Heaven sect?" Zhou Xuanji shook his head and said, "I don't know. It's my first time ascending." Emissary Li Qing nodded. He was not guessing that Zhou Xuanji was hiding something. Perhaps it was the good karma left by Zhou Xuanji's ancestors. Sage Yuqian looked at Zhou Xuanji with a complicated expression. His heart was filled with reluctance. He hated, not because he hated Zhou Xuanji, but because he hated himself. If he was as powerful as Taichu Yudao, he would have protected Zhou Xuanji too. Who would not want such a prodigy? The more he thought about it, the more frustrated he became. He wanted to leave immediately. Li Zhangqi said, "The Ascender examination is over. Begin to count the Earth Core crystals." As he spoke, the 36 Tao Heaven sect disciples flew down and inspected the geocentric flame crystal for the last person. Zhou Xuanji took out all the Earth Core crystals and placed them in front of him, waiting for the inspection. He was still thinking about who those people were. Emissary Li Qing saw through his thoughts and said softly, "They are probably first-rate factions in the Center God province. Those sects that came might be one of them too, such as the Sovereign Demon sect and the Buddha Ghost sect. Don't overlook them just because they are here." Zhou Xuanji nodded. He was not that foolish. The leaders of the other sects were not here after all. But why did those powerful cultivators not dare to show their faces just now? Half an hour later, the results of the Ascender examination were out. As expected, Zhou Xuanji ranked first. The second was a 7th Revolution Golden Immortal from the Buddha Ghost sect. He hid himself well and was not encountered by Zhou Xuanji. Guma Yuan was ranked 7th. It was too late for him to plunder on the last day. And Mo Yuha did not have a single Earth Core crystal, so he was eliminated. Other than Zhou Xuanji, the other Divine Cliff disciples did not make it into the top 10. The top 10 were brought up to the sky by the Tao Heaven sect disciples, while Li Zhangqi led the other sects away. Zhou Xuanji was looking forward to what kind of supreme treasure could help him reach 10th Revolution Golden Immortal quickly. Once he reached 7th Revolution Golden Immortal, he would be able to use the Armageddon Legendary Sword. Just thinking about it made him excited. Chapter 436. Under the guidance of the Tao Heaven sect disciples, Zhou Xuanji and the others came to a palace. At the same time, their seniors followed them. Guma Yuan kept staring at Zhou Xuanji as though he wanted to eat him alive. Within the palace, 3 elders of the Tao Heaven sect were waiting. They looked like they had walked out of a painting, and they had benevolent looks on their faces. Their white hair fluttered in the wind. Congratulations to the geniuses for winning the Ascender examination. Next, you will receive your rewards according to your ranking. The white-haired elder in the middle smiled and began to receive the rewards from the 10th place. Emissary Li Qing sent a telepathic message to Zhou Xuanji. "We will stay in the Tao Heaven sect for a few days and wait for the Cliff Lord to pick us up." Zhou Xuanji nodded slightly. He understood that he would surely die if he went out now. But he did not know if Han Shuzi could stop so many powerful cultivators. Soon, it was Zhou Xuanji's turn. The Tao Heaven sect put the prize into the storage ring, and Zhou Xuanji swept it with his divine sense and found that there were a few small mountains of pure spirit pills. Apart from this, there was also a red pearl that was as big as a fist. It was sparkling and translucent, and it looked like a fruit. He was curious about what it was, but was too embarrassed to ask. "My little friend Xuanji, why don't you stay for a few days? Our sect lord wants to talk to you," the white-haired elder said with a chuckle. The white-haired elder chuckled. The 2 elders beside him also nodded at Zhou Xuanji with a smile. This kid's talent was even more ridiculous than their sect lords, so they naturally wanted to befriend him. Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, "Then I shall accept." He also wanted to meet Taichu Yudao. After that, he left with emissary Li Qing. Gumian stopped him suddenly and said with gritted teeth, "Zhou Xuanji, the next time we meet, I will surely defeat you. Don't die." After that, he left with the Buddha ghost sect's true god. Zhou Xuanji had 2 chances to kill him, but he did not. This made him feel a little complicated. He decided to go into closed-door cultivation after returning. He would not come out until he broke through to void extreme immortal. Zhou Xuanji did not mind, but emissary Li Qing shook his head and laughed. "It's so good to be young," he sighed in amazement. Zhou Xuanji curled his lip and said, "I'm young, but he's not." Only God knew how old Guma Yuan was. In the Taoist temple, Zhou Xuanji finally saw the famous Taichu Yudao. He entered the temple by himself, while emissary Li Qing waited outside. This person was even more ordinary than he had imagined. Standing there, his aura was void, as if he had become one with heaven and earth. He did not have the aura of an expert at all. However, the more he thought about it, the more he respected Taichu Yudao. This was another kind of expert who had reached the peak. They had seen through everything and restrained their sharpness. Taichu Yudao stroked his beard and said with a smile, as expected of a first-class great sovereign, "His aptitude is indeed amazing." Zhou Xuanji cupped his fist and said, "Thank you for your help, Sect Lord Taichu." Taichu Yudao gestured for him to come forward. Zhou Xuanji was not on guard and walked over without hesitation. If Taichu Yudao wanted to kill him, he could have done so directly, and he would not have been able to stop him. Taichu Yudao took his hand and sighed emotionally. "You should also want to know who the young friend I'm talking about is, right?" Without waiting for Zhou Xuanji's reply, he started talking to himself. Just as Zhou Xuanji had guessed, his little friend was the one who created the world Buddha art and the Tianxia map. He died 180,000 years ago, and the Tianxia map fell into the mortal world. That person was called Gu Tianxia, and he had the bloodline of both humans and demons. Ever since he was born, he had not been accepted by either race. After going through countless trials and tribulations, he created the world Buddha art and the Tianxia map, becoming incredibly famous. He challenged experts everywhere and emerged victorious until he met Taichu Yudao. After losing to Taichu Yudao, the two of them appreciated each other and discussed the Tao at the Tao Heaven sect for thousands of years. When mentioning Gu Tianxia, Taichu Yudao continuously sighed, his tone filled with regret. If such a genius could live for a long time, he might have been able to stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Zhou Xuanji could not help but ask, "Who killed him?" Taichu Yudao frowned and said, "I'm not sure. I only know that person's surname is Xian. Xiandaoya." Zhou Xuanji almost cursed out. So is that bastard. No wonder this fellow would change his fate for him, allowing him to obtain information about the Tianxia map by chance. Feng Qiul, Deoya Old Man, and Devil Emperor Dugu had all become his chess pieces without knowing it. Xiandaoya said that he could become Zhou Xuanji's trump card, but he had killed Gu Tianxia. This promise could also be a threat. Zhou Xuanji's mind worked like lightning, thinking of countless possibilities. He did not say it out loud and pretended that he did not know who Xiandaoya was. He could not convince himself to believe Xiandaoya, nor could he believe Taichu Yudao. The best thing to do was to pretend to be a chess piece and wait and see. Zhou Xuanji looked up and asked, "Between you and that person, who is stronger?" This question was very important. Taichu Yudao said in a low voice, "I've only seen him once and did not have the chance to act. However, he was able to easily escape from me, so his cultivation should be higher than mine." In actuality, he did not feel that person was a match for him, but in order to make Zhou Xuanji cautious, he could only exaggerate. Zhou Xuanji felt a headache. A powerful enemy that even Taichu Yudao could not defeat. When would he have the strength to fight? However, that fellow had always been in the shadows. There was definitely a power more powerful than him restricting him, making it so that he did not dare to show himself. For Zhou Xuanji, this was a breakthrough point. You can stay in the Tao Heaven sect and wait for Han Shuzi to come and pick you up. That boy is very powerful and might surpass me someday, Taichu Yudao said as he chuckled. Taichu Yudao chuckled. There were only a few people in the world who had the right to call Han Shuzi a brat. Zhou Xuanji nodded and said, "Thank you, Dao Heaven Sect, for hosting me." Taichu Yudao waved his hand and said with a smile, "If I fall one day and the world belongs to you, I hope you can treat the Dao Heaven Sect well." Fall? Zhou Xuanji thought about it and said seriously, "I owe you a debt of gratitude, so I can naturally do this. Of course, the prerequisite is that I have the strength to do it." Taichu Yudao nodded with a smile, not doubting Zhou Xuanji's potential at all. The two chatted for a while more before Zhou Xuanji left. The Taoist temple fell silent. Taichu Yudao stopped smiling and took out a wooden stick. There were two strange words carved on it. He mumbled, "What you said was true. I'm suddenly very interested in who is playing this game of chess. It's time for the trump card you left behind to come out." The wooden stick in his hand dissipated into motes of light that floated in the air. On the other side, Zhou Xuanji and Emissary Li Qing returned to the residence. Emissary Li Qing smiled and said, "The Tao Fetus Red Loathe Pearl is a Khanate creation, and it has existed for more than 100,000 years. Even the Tao Heaven Sect has less than 10 of them. You can use them when you return to the Divine Cliff. After all, you will be in seclusion for a long time." Zhou Xuanji nodded. In the Taoist temple, Taichu Yudao had told him about the Tao Fetus Red Loathe Pearl's origins, so he wanted to quickly return to the Divine Cliff. The two parted ways and returned to their respective rooms. Zhou Xuanji sat on the bed and took out the ancient god sword, summoning the 9 souls. He asked Gu Tianxia and Xiandaoya to see if anyone knew. Emperor Zhao sneered. "Xiandaoya? He's just a paper tiger. Don't be fooled by him." Calm. Wonderful bookstore calm. Chapter 437. Hearing Emperor Zhao's words, Zhou Xuanji could not help but feel surprised, so he asked about Xiandaoya's strength. Emperor Zhao smiled and said, "This guy is a special soul that can escape beyond the 5 elements heaven and earth. He comes and goes without a trace, so he gives off an unfathomable feeling. However, he is not strong. He was able to kill Gu Tianxia back then because Gu Tianxia was unprepared. At that time, Gu Tianxia and Divine Lord Ji fought, and both were injured, which gave him the opportunity. I once met Xiandaoya. At that time, he wanted to split his soul and take over my body, but I easily killed him. His tone was arrogant and full of disdain. An existence that could intimidate Taichu Yudao had been accidentally defeated by him. I would not be happy." Emperor Hanlin then said, "Even so, no one can kill him. This is also a form of strength. He is truly an undying existence in the great 1,000 worlds." Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji could not help but think of Daoya Old Man's undying divine ability. So as a legacy, Emperor Zhao spoke again. "Brother Zhou, find a chance to resurrect me. I'll bring you on a horse galloping across the Center God province. Although I'm not even 80,000 years old, I almost became the Sovereign Demon Sect's sect master." Back then, he began to boast endlessly, and Zhou Xuanji was a little doubtful. This guy was once a sect master candidate of the Sovereign Demon Sect. The Sovereign Demon Sect was a force even stronger than the Divine Cliff. Was this guy really that powerful? The current Sovereign Demon Sect's sect master had lived for hundreds of thousands of years. Venerable Xian snorted coldly. Sovereign Demon Sect? When this sovereign was still alive, there seemed to be a junior who founded the Sovereign Demon Sect. Emperor Zhao laughed. "You really know how to brag." The other mighty figures spoke one after another. "Emperor Zhao, you just want to revive. All right, you still haven't told me how you died." "I know, he died of chi deviation. Tis TSK, the Sovereign Demon Sect has already declined. Are you looking down on me? We're all remnant souls, so stop boasting." Zhou Xuanji could tell that these souls all wanted to revive. It was not impossible, but not for now. Without sufficient strength, he still wanted to understand the boundless universe through the 9 souls. After a series of inquiries, the pressure in his heart suddenly decreased. Although Xiandaoya was undying, his combat power was not strong, so there was no need to worry too much about him. What he had to worry about the most was that Xian Daoya would use some tricks and attract other experts to deal with him. After chatting for an hour, Zhou Xuanji put away the ancient god sword. He sat cross-legged on the bed and began to cultivate. This was the Dao Heaven sect, so he wasn't afraid of sneak attacks. Meanwhile, news of the Ascender examination in the mysterious tribulation crater spread like wildfire. The news that Ji Xian was Zhou Xuanji swept across the entire region like a hurricane. Within just 10 days, the entire Center God province was discussing this. First-class Great Emperor Zhou Xuanji, he had ascended. He had first subdued Shirshin Zone before defeating Gu Moyuan and Mo Yuha, obtaining first place in the Ascender examination. In an instant, Zhou Xuanji once again became an influential figure, and the younger generation all looked forward to him. Zhou Xuanji was not even 100 years old. These days, whenever Zhou Xuanji went out to walk around the Dao Heaven sect, the disciples all looked at him differently. Wherever he went, there would be people discussing and pointing at him. Of course, no one dared to get close to him. A first-class great sovereign only existed in legends. They were already very excited to be able to see one with their own eyes. 24 days had passed since the Ascender examination ended. Han Shuzi finally came. He came to his residence, and all the disciples surrounded him. "Cliff Lord, you are so slow," Zhou Xuanji said faintly. They only needed 6 days to get here, but Han Shuzi took more than half a month. However, Han Shuzi came to save him, so he could not blame him. He could not wait to absorb the Dao Fetus Red Loathe Pearl in isolation. "Let's go," Han Shuzi said with a smile. "I have already informed the Taichu sect lord." After that, he waved his right hand, and the group flew up with the wind. A green gust of wind swept toward the horizon. Along the way, all the Divine Cliff's disciples were careful, fearing that the enemy would appear again. Han Shuzi praised everyone before saying to Zhou Xuanji, "After this mission, focus on your cultivation and try to break through to 10th Revolution Golden Immortal as soon as possible." The other disciples were envious. Becoming a 10th Revolution Golden Immortal after ascending for less than a year. Compared to him, they were really... Wu Mingyi felt the most complicated because he ascended on the same day as Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji nodded and said, "Cliff Lord, can you help me investigate the whereabouts of the 18 divine swords? I will find them myself." 18 divine swords? Emissary Li Qing looked at him in surprise. Han Shuzi smiled with narrowed eyes and said, "Who told you that the 18 divine swords really exist? In the Center God province, the 18 divine swords were just a legend." Zhou Xuanji replied telepathically. There was nothing to hide about Magistrate Chui's identity. After all, he was very powerful. Who would dare to make trouble for him? Han Shuzi heard him and looked at him deeply. The others were shocked. They immediately understood. No wonder Zhou Xuanji could ascend to the Divine Cliff. He should have appeared in the Heavenly Palace. "That's easy. I have something else to tell you," Han Shuzi said as he nodded. Han Shuzi nodded, and the smile on his face disappeared. Zhou Xuanji looked at him curiously. Han Shuzi did not care about the others and said straightforwardly, "2 more people ascended from the northern wilderness region. They are Baihao Yisun and Xiao Hongjun. You seem to have enmity with them." Baihao Yisun is easy to deal with. That boy has a carefree personality and will not ask his revered teacher for help. However, Xiao Hongjun will definitely take revenge. She has already returned to the Bloodbat Cave and will most likely ask old ancestor Bloodbat to deal with you. That demon's cultivation is not inferior to mine, so you must be careful. Zhou Xuanji frowned. He had never thought that these 2 fellows would also come to the Center God province. He decided that when he reached the Divine Cliff, he would take out the Spirit Communication Heart to contact Marquis and ask about the situation in the Northern Wilderness region. Han Shuzi then asked, "Is Devil Emperor Dugu also in the Northern Wilderness region? Is your relationship with him good?" Hearing this, Emissary Li Qing's expression slightly changed. Back then, Devil Emperor Dugu had charged into the Divine Cliff alone and was the Divine Cliff's mortal enemy. Zhou Xuanji nodded and did not hide anything. He had his own friends, and he believed that Han Shuzi would not be so narrow-minded. After hearing this, Han Shuzi nodded and said, Devil Emperor Dugu is indeed peerless, and peerless among second-class great emperors. However, this person can easily go berserk, so you must be careful. Easily go berserk? Zhou Xuanji's heart thumped. That old guy wouldn't go berserk in the northern wilderness region and slaughter all living beings, right? Don't worry. It's just that he can't withstand the spiritual chi of the Center God province. He'll be fine in the mortal world. Otherwise, why would he hide in the northern wilderness region? Han Shuzi saw through his thoughts and consoled him, causing him to instantly heave a sigh of relief. Zhou Xuanji suddenly felt that even if he came to the Center God province, he would not be able to see through the northern wilderness region. Why were Wang Ho, Devil Emperor Dugu, Bai Hao Yisin, Xian Deoya, and Xiao Hongjun in the northern wilderness region? He couldn't understand, so he didn't ask. Half a day later, after that, they returned to the Divine Cliff. After returning to his courtyard, Zhou Xuanji immediately took out the spirit communication heart and contacted Marquis. Mobile version of the fastest updated website. Chapter 438. Only Zhou Xuanji could enter this courtyard. He had given the order that everyone else had to call out to him before entering, including Shi Shenzong. Shi Shenzong and Fei Hai were not here. They were most likely studying in Divine Cliff City. Soon, Wang Ho's voice came from the psychic heart. What is it? Zhou Xuanji immediately asked about the situation in the northern wilderness region, and Marquis replied. After he left, the northern wilderness region remained peaceful. Devil Emperor Dugu guarded the northern part of the continent and never left his residence. The other experts who could threaten the northern wilderness region did not cause any trouble, and it was a peaceful time. Zhou Xuanji's heart was finally relieved. He told them about Xiao Hongjuan's ascension and told Marquis to be careful. Then, he put away the heart of communication, gave a few instructions to the maid, and returned to his room to begin his closed-door training. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, he held the Tao Fetus Red Loathe Pearl in his arms. He immediately used world internalization and absorbed the spiritual energy within the Tao Fetus Red Loathe Pearl. Boom! Zhou Xuanji felt a jolt in his soul as spiritual qi surged into his body. The feeling of spiritual qi cleansing his bones and tendons was really wonderful. He entered a state of full concentration and cultivation. Inside the Cliffmaster's palace, Han Shuzi gathered the 36 envoys, his personal disciples, and all the elders together. He sat on the head of the table and began to speak. On the way to the Tao Heaven sect, I encountered those people who wanted to kill Zhou Xuanji. Their target has already shifted to our Divine Cliff. According to my investigations, the factions involved include the Kunmu Hall, the 7 Big Dipper sects, the Buddha Ghost sect, the Black Thunder Aperture, and the 8 Desolate Spirit sect. Although I killed 8 people, it's far from enough. The Divine Cliff's greatest disaster in the past 100,000 years is about to come. I don't want to explain why we have to protect Zhou Xuanji. You should all understand that you must be on your guard in case the enemy invades at any time. His voice became more serious than ever, and no one refuted. As the rulers of the Divine Cliff, they knew that the Divine Cliff's development had reached a bottleneck. They could no longer excavate the resources of the mortal realms. Zhou Xuanji was their hope to break through this obstacle. The eldest disciple, Yang Yuqian, cupped his fist and said, "Do we need to allocate resources to Zhou Xuanji?" He was not jealous of Zhou Xuanji. Compared to the Cliffmaster, he was more willing to see the Divine Cliff prosper. Moreover, according to his understanding, Zhou Xuanji had created his own sect in the mortal realm and loved swords. He most likely would not accept the position of Cliffmaster. Han Shuzi shook his head and said, "He has his own fortuitous encounters. There's no need for us to add fuel to the fire. It's enough for us to help him find out the whereabouts of the 18 divine swords. 18 divine swords. A commotion broke out in the hall. Yang Yutian was stunned for a moment before he said, I do know of a holy sword, but this sword is located. He told them the location of the holy sword, causing everyone to be surprised. Why is it in his hands? If that's the case, how did you get the sword? Forget it. Let's find out the whereabouts of the other sacred swords. I agree. Cliff Lord, you cannot leave the divine cliff. If you leave, the divine cliff might be attacked. Han Shuzi frowned as well. There was fear in his eyes. He sighed. Let's look for the whereabouts of the other holy swords. That person is crazy, but he is extremely powerful. Even if I were to encounter him, I wouldn't have any chance of winning. The others nodded in agreement. Yang Yutian frowned, but did not say anything. Zhou Xuanji's ascension caused a huge commotion in the Center God province. Ever since he went into closed-door cultivation, the Divine Cliff's disciples were often ambushed by mysterious factions when they went out on missions. Even the Divine Cliff City was infiltrated by enemies. Although the higher-ups could understand it, the disciples were displeased. They felt that it was unfair. For Zhou Xuanji, the Divine Cliff placed them in danger. Soon, the Divine Cliff was filled with complaints. 10 months later, analyzed that the sword owner has reached 93 years old. Gotcha started. Ding. Congratulations, the sword owner obtained glorious gold God Temple Diamond Sword, Heavenly Soul, Shaking Wind Sword. Zhou Xuanji was woken up by the sword spirit's voice. He did not open his eyes, but continued to absorb the Tao Fetus Red Loathe Pearl's spiritual chi, because he was about to break through. The Tao Fetus Red Loathe Pearl had accumulated spiritual chi for hundreds of thousands of years. In less than a year, he was about to break through to 6th Revolution Golden Immortal, which meant that he would reach 7th Revolution Golden Immortal in, at most, 2 years. The Armageddon legendary sword was waving at him. 5 days later, he successfully broke through to 6th Revolution Golden Immortal. He continued to cultivate. In the courtyard next to him, Shi Shinzong sensed his magic energy aura and frowned slightly. No, I can't be left behind by him, he said with gritted teeth. He stopped practicing with the sword and sat down to internalize chi. Boom! Under the thunderous sky, mountains were densely packed like spikes. Bai Hao Yisin knelt at the foot of a mountain, and Feng Kuel was beside him. At this moment, Feng Kuel was only left with his soul. He was like a candle flame, flickering and about to dissipate at any moment. How much longer do we have to kneel for? He asked with gritted teeth. Bai Hao Yisin used the same method as Zhou Xuanji to ascend. In order to follow him, Feng Kuel gave up his body and was only left with his soul. Since things had come to this, he could only follow Bai Hao Yisin to the end. Bai Hao Yisin straightened his back and placed his hands on his legs as he said, "Wait for this emperor's revered teacher to descend. When that time comes, he can casually point at you, and you will recover your body." Hearing this, Feng Kuel became excited. He could not maintain his soul form for too long. After all, his magic energy was not powerful enough. Whoosh! A cold gust of wind blew, causing Feng Kuel's soul to tremble. "Bai Hao, you still have the face to come back." A dignified voice sounded out. This sentence caused Feng Kuel's expression to instantly fall. Fudge! Bai Hao Yisin had come to the mortal realm without telling his revered teacher? If that was the case, would his revered teacher become angry whenever he saw him? The more Feng Kuel thought about it, the more terrified he became. Bai Hao Yisin sighed and said, "Revered teacher, this emperor was wrong. This emperor was instigated by a traitor. That old fellow is too sinister. You shouldn't have made friends with him." As he spoke, a figure appeared in front of him and slapped him across the face, sending him flying and crashing into a mountain. Feng Kuel was given a big fright, and his body trembled as he looked at the newcomer in terror. It was a well-built man who looked 40 or 50 years old. His black hair was mixed with many white hairs, and he wore tattered gray clothes, looking like a boorish man from the mountains. He looked at Bai Hao Yisin and said in a low voice, "Are you blaming teacher?" Bai Hao Isin hurriedly landed and knelt as he begged. Revered teacher, how could I dare? I was wrong. Seeing that his revered teacher was angry, he did not dare to call himself this emperor anymore. The well-built man looked at him and said coldly, from today onwards, don't descend into the mortal realm again. Teacher will give you a mission, and you must properly cultivate. Bai Hao Isin felt quite surprised and asked, what mission? The well-built man replied, defeat someone and bring glory to me. Who? The 12th on the great emperor's steel, Zhou Xuanji. Bai Hao Isin's face instantly became pale, and he almost coughed up a mouthful of blood. Chapter 439. Bai Hao Isin forced a smile and said, revered teacher, Zhou Xuanji is still young, and I've seen him before. Why suppress him? Feng Kule's expression was strange. Young? Suppress? Are you kidding me? The muscular man stared at him and cursed. I told you to fight him, so you did it. He's a first-class, great emperor. Once he grows up, he will be 9 heavens above you. Bai Hao Isin felt depressed and asked, what's the reason? There has to be a reason, right? Is it because he's too talented? The muscular man replied, the person behind him is from the great Emperor Dao court. Ever since he was born, the great Thousand Worlds' fate changed. The races of the other divine provinces showed signs of invading the Center God province. First, it was the Northern Wilderness region, and next, it might be the Great Thousand World. It's all because of him. Bai Hao Isin opened his eyes wide and said with gritted teeth, Great Emperor Dao, court? Wait, it can't be that old guy. Feng Kule was quite confused. What was a Great Emperor Dao court? It sounded very powerful. It's him, Xian Daoya. The Daoya old man beside Zhou Xuanji is the reincarnation of his soul. The muscular man nodded with a sharp look in his eyes. Bai Hao Isin's breathing became ragged, and his anger grew. So that's why Xian Daoya tricked him into descending to be Zhou Xuanji's stepping stone. How hateful! In the blink of an eye, 2 years passed. Zhou Xuanji reached 95 years old and obtained 3 legendary swords. They were the Abyssal Cleaving Sword, Silver Moon Sword, and 3 Leopard One Sword. They were all glorious gold grade. To him, his luck was a little bad, but he did not give up, because he was about to break through to 7th Revolution Golden Immortal. It had to be said that the Tao Fetus Red, Loathe Pearl's spiritual chi was too massive. As his cultivation grew, the rate at which he absorbed spiritual chi increased, and he felt that it was inexhaustible. He even suspected that this pearl contained an independent world. Other than spiritual chi, the Tao Fetus Red Loathe Pearl also had a special energy that could continuously improve his body. After breaking through in 8 days, he finally reached 7th Revolution Golden Immortal. After consolidating his magic energy, he immediately took out the all-evil yin-yang destruction. At first glance, the sword looked like a pair of scissors with black and white blades. There was a gap of 3 centimeters between the 2 blades, the white blade and the black blade respectively. There were dozens of tiny black and white beads the size of sesame seeds embedded in the sword guard. He swallowed his saliva and muttered, what a terrifying power! Even though the all-evil yin-yang destruction didn't move and he didn't inject any magic power into it, he could still feel the surging energy contained within it. If it were to explode, it could destroy everything. He smiled in satisfaction. He didn't test the power of the all-evil yin-yang destruction, but put it back into the supreme warehouse. He didn't stand up and leave. Instead, he continued to absorb the Tao Fetus Red Loathe Pearl. Since he was in seclusion, he naturally had to absorb the Tao Fetus Red Loathe Pearl in one go. In the courtyard, Shi Shinzong was currently practicing his swordsmanship when Fei Hai came to his side and asked curiously, did Senior Zhou break through again? Ever since he knew that Ji Xian was Zhou Xuanji, he was extremely excited and acted arrogantly wherever he went. Now, as long as he went to Divine Cliff City, many disciples would try to curry favor with him. Of course, there were also people who mocked and ridiculed him, but he did not take it to heart. Judging from the divine Cliff's intentions, it was obvious that they wanted to nurture Zhou Xuanji as the sex treasure. Naturally, he did not care about the jealous words of some disciples. Shi Shinzong continued to practice as he replied, He behaved calmly. He was used to it. He did not want to compete with Zhou Xuanji anymore. This was the first time Shi Shinzong had felt powerless towards a person's talent. In the past, he thought that he could catch up to Zhou Xuanji. From the looks of it, however, he had set his sights on the Ascender assessment. He wanted to obtain such an opportunity as well. By the way, the 100 Swords gathering will begin in 10 years. Don't you want to go and have a look? Fei Hai could tell that he was not in a good mood, so he changed the topic. Shi Shinzong was a second-grade great emperor, someone he had to curry favor with. Hearing this, Shi Shinzong stopped and asked, The desolate North 7 Sword Emperors are also participating? Fei Hai nodded and said excitedly, The 100 Swords martial competition is a grand event for sword cultivators like you. It gathers all the powerful sword cultivators in the Center God province and is hosted by Sword Lord Gu. I heard that you can obtain the Heaven and Earth Sword embryo from the 100 Swords martial competition this time. Don't you want to try? Shi Shinzong started to think. Fei Hai did not disturb Zhou Xuanji. After making sure that Zhou Xuanji did not intend to come out, he turned around and left. Cliff Master Hall. Han Shuzi sat on the chair and sighed. A 7th Revolution Golden Immortal. This kid's absorption ability is too strong. To think that my joke back then would come true. Yang Yuqian, who was standing in front of him, also had a complicated expression. He admired Zhou Xuanji's talent, but he was also a little unwilling. Fortunately, he was neither jealous nor resentful. Yang Yuqian cupped his fist and said, Revered teacher, those sects have been acting more and more brazenly recently. I'm afraid that a war is about to break out, but I keep feeling that there's a conspiracy. They have been delaying, and I don't know what they're waiting for. Han Shuzi said with squinted eyes, Don't you understand what they're waiting for? Who is the greatest threat in the Divine Cliff? If they want to start a war, they have to get rid of the greatest threat first. Yang Yuqian opened his eyes wide. Wasn't the most powerful cultivator in the Divine Cliff Han Shuzi? Could it be that the enemy was trying to assassinate Han Shuzi? Yuqian, we must prepare for the worst. If I die, the position of Cliff Master will belong to you. You must build a good relationship with Wu Qiu and Zhou Xuanji. They're the two best people in the Divine Cliff, especially Zhou Xuanji. I see that this kid is magnanimous and principled. If you don't target him, he will definitely repay you. Han Shuzi got up and said with deep meaning. He had always seen the conflict between Yang Yuqian and Wu Qiu, but rarely mentioned it. Yang Yuqian said anxiously, Revered teacher, what are you talking about? How can you die? Han Shuzi waved his hand and said with a smile, I'm just saying if. I've already written my will. If one day you face the same situation as me, remember to leave a backup plan. Don't let the Divine Cliff die. Yang Yuqian was silent. The heavy responsibility was suffocating him. He truly felt what the position of Cliff Master represented. After that, Han Shuzi asked him to leave. Only Han Shuzi was left in the palace. Han Shuzi sat down and said faintly, Come out. Right after he spoke, a black shadow appeared. It looked like a person. The black shadow laughed coldly. Han Shuzi, it seems like you already know the outcome. Why are you still so stubborn? Han Shuzi said calmly, To protect the Divine Cliff, I already knew that you have been suppressing the Divine Cliff. But for the peace of the Center God province, you did not make a big move. The black shadow paced back and forth in front of him and seemed to be thinking about something. A while later, the black shadow came to a realization and said, I see. Zhou Xuanji is related to the previous Cliff Master of the Divine Cliff, right? Or else, why would you protect him so desperately? You can't just talk about talent alone. Han Shuzi's pupils contracted. Just when he was about to speak, the black shadow burrowed into the ground. He could not stop it in time. With a long sigh, his body collapsed like a pile of mud. His eyes became hazy as he mumbled, If you were here, how would we deal with this tribulation? Mobile version of the fastest updated website. M. Chapter 440. 3 years later, Zhou Xuanji was 98 years old and successfully broke through to 8th Revolution Golden Immortal. At the same time, he also obtained 2 ordinary sword techniques and 5 divine swords, for Amethyst divine swords and 1 Heavenly Soul divine sword. They were the Memory Sword, the Torrential Rain Sword, the Earth Attraction Sword, the Great Western Dipper Sword, and the Sunset Heavenly Sword. Zhou Xuanji was most interested in the Memory Sword. Although it was only an amethyst godly sword, its special ability was not bad. If he was stabbed by it, he would easily fall into his memories. In the midst of battle, if he could make his opponent recall their memories, it might have an unexpected effect. Zhou Xuanji somehow thought of the animations, dramas, and movies in his previous life. Whenever he started reminiscing, he was about to die. After reaching the 8th Revolution Golden Immortal Realm, he stopped. He took out the ancient god sword and summoned the 9 souls. The spiritual energy of the Tao Fetus Red Loathed Pearl hadn't been used up yet, but he felt that things were going too smoothly. If this goes on, will there be repercussions? Demon Lord Rian replied, "The Tao Fetus Red Loathed Bead cannot be considered a treasure of heaven and earth. Just like your violet demon monarch's heart, it can be considered a great fortune of heaven and earth. The Tao Heaven sect treats them as treasures, and they are only able to establish their current network of connections through these items. You don't have to worry." The 9 souls within the ancient god sword were Emperor Hamlin, Saber Monarch Donghai, Demon Lord Rin, Emperor Songhai, Ghost Emperor Zhangtan, Emperor Zhao, Dao Lord Xiantian, Lu Wuji, and Lord Xian. The most mysterious ones, Dao Lord Xiantian and Lord Xian, were still unknown. The others had all made a name for themselves in the Great Thousand World, which allowed Zhou Xuanji to understand many historical truths that no one knew about. He curiously asked, how did the Tao Fetus Red Loathed Pearl come about? This thing was so powerful that the 5-colored immortal fruit was nothing compared to it. Lu Wuji replied, it was born from the Tao Fetus tree. The Tao Fetus tree has 7 colored fruits, and the Tao Fetus Red Loathed Pearl is the 3rd grade fruit. Only 3rd class? Zhou Xuanji blinked and suddenly wanted to snatch the Tao embryo tree. Of course, he was just thinking about it. He was indebted to Tai Chu Yu Dao. Even if he had the power, he would not do such a thing. Zhou Xuanji chatted a bit more before putting away the ancient god sword. He sent a voice transmission to Fei Hai, who was cultivating in the mansion, and asked him to investigate Xian Xianghua's whereabouts. It had already been 6 years since she ascended. With Xian Xianghua's personality, she should have already made a name for herself. To prevent any accidents, he even mentioned Baihao Yisin and Xiao Hongjun. If his enemies found out that he had Fei Hai investigate the whereabouts of the 3 of them, they would probably think that he was investigating his enemies. Fei Hai immediately set off. He had many friends outside the Divine Cliff, and even more so inside the Divine Cliff. All he had to do was ask his friends to pay attention when they went out to train. Half a year later, inside the Cliff Master's palace, Han Shuzi, who was cultivating quietly, suddenly opened his eyes and cried out in a deep voice, "Who is it? Come out!" A burst of eerie laughter rang out, as if a malicious ghost had entered the hall. Immediately after, a man emerged from a wooden pillar at the side. His upper body was exposed, his white hair scattered over his shoulders, his skin was dark, and his face was twisted and ferocious. He wore a brocade robe with poisonous thorns in its mouth. He stared at Han Shuzi and said coldly, "Han Shuzi, your death has come." Han Shuzi's pupils suddenly constricted when he saw him, and he immediately stood up. "Malicious Buddha, how could you?" Han Shuzi cried out with a trembling voice, his eyes filled with fear. Another figure appeared from the ground in front of him. It was also a malicious Buddha, like a clone. This malicious Buddha laughed sinisterly and said, "You should know who you have offended. Someone asked me to kill you. It's that simple." Numerous malicious Buddhas appeared around Han Shuzi and surrounded him. To be honest, I don't understand you. You have offended both sides because of Zhou Xuanji. One is the great Emperor Dao court, and the other is the demonic emperor. Where do you get your confidence from? The 9 malicious Buddhas asked at the same time. Their voices gathered together, and the pressure increased tremendously. Han Shuzi frowned and said, "You were asked by the demonic emperor?" The malicious Buddhas laughed condescendingly, and murderous intent burst out from their eyes at the same time. They charged at Han Shuzi together. Boom! A world-shaking explosion came, shaking the entire divine cliff. Zhou Xuanji, who was cultivating in his residence, opened his eyes in shock. He immediately sent out his divine sense and saw that the Cliff Master Hall was engulfed by billowing dust and intense flames. Countless disciples were rushing over from all directions. Enemy attack. Someone sneak attacked the Cliff Master? Prepare for battle. What's going on? Who dares to charge into our divine cliff? Loud shouts sounded out as the 36 emissaries and legacy disciples rushed over. Zhou Xuanji frowned and walked out of the room. All the servants in the mansion were in a state of panic. Even Fei Hai looked terrified. Shi Shenzong came before Zhou Xuanji and said in a low voice, "They might be coming for you. I feel that you should run." The other party directly attacked the Cliff Master. They are evidently determined to win. If they directly attacked Zhou Xuanji, it meant that they were wary of Han Shuzi. However, since they attacked Han Shuzi first, it meant that they had great confidence. Zhou Xuanji's frown became even deeper. How could he run away just like that? Han Shuzi had shown him too much kindness. He could not be so heartless and unscrupulous. At that moment, Emissary Li Qing suddenly appeared. He said in a low voice, "The two of you, come with me." After saying this, he waved his sleeve and used magic energy to forcefully sweep Zhou Xuanji and Shi Shenzong away. A green gust of wind quickly swept into the fog that covered the sky. Within the wind, Zhou Xuanji asked in a low voice, "Where are we going?" He swept his divine sense over Emissary Li Qing. He still remembered the story of Sun Wukong defeating the white-boned spirit 3 times. Could it be that this fellow was an enemy in disguise? Emissary Li Qing's expression was unsightly, and he gritted his teeth as he said, "The Cliff Master ordered me to escape with you. The divine cliff is in danger. The one who came is called Malicious Buddha, and he's an undying old monster who has lived for millions of years. Even the Cliff Master is not a match for him. Damn it, why does such a person still exist?" Malicious Buddha, Zhou Xuanji, and Shi Shenzong's expressions greatly fell. They had both heard of this name before. This person had once been a Buddha before falling into the demonic path. His strength was unparalleled, and he had disappeared for hundreds of thousands of years. Most people thought that he was a fictional existence. Zhou Xuanji gripped his fists and asked, "What about the Cliff Master and the Divine Cliff? Will they be safe after I leave?" Emissary Li Qing did not reply, but his body slightly trembled. Evidently, he was not very calm. Seeing this, Zhou Xuanji sighed. In the end, it was he who had harmed the Divine Cliff. He could not understand. Why would an existence like Malicious Buddha target him and be jealous of his talent? Logically, this should not be the case. After all, he was not the only first-class great emperor. There were 11 more first-class great emperors behind him. Where are we going next? Shi Shenzong asked. He did not let Emissary Li Qing leave him behind and chose to follow Zhou Xuanji instead. He had promised to follow Zhou Xuanji, so he could not go back on his word, even if the outcome was death. Emissary Li Qing looked into the distance and mumbled, "To seek refuge with the most powerful existence in the Center God Province." "Who?" Shi Shenzong asked. Emissary Li Qing sighed, "Sovereign Xian." Shi Shenzong was stunned. Who was that? Zhou Xuanji's eyes widened, and he almost blurted out the name of a divine beast. Mobile version of the fastest updated website. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.